July 1988. A US Navy cruiser is battling Iranian gunboats in the Persian Gulf. Suddenly, its radar picks up a mystery aircraft. Is this plane friend or foe? They have 7 minutes to decide. As the aircraft draws ever closer, the pressure mounts.
If you do not change course to 270 immediately...
And the captain is faced with a terrible choice. Shoot it down or risk the lives of his own crew.
Subject to United States Defense Measures.
3,000. We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Aero Peru 603. We are in an emergency.
It's a routine short-haul flight, but an Iranian passenger jet is heading into mortal danger.
It's opening fire with guns.
It's approaching a war zone in which a US Navy ship is engaged in combat. The crew are on a state of high alert. Anything that draws near is seen as a threat.
Air contact still inbound, increasing speed and descending range 11
United
miles.
States naval warship.
Closing and descending 1,000.
Now you're in real serious business.
You are standing into danger?
Wait a minute. I could be dead.
Range 13 miles.
The aircraft is not responding to warnings. Iran Air 655 seems oblivious to the danger. In 1988, Iran and Iraq have reached a stalemate in a savage 8-year conflict. It's a war of attrition, and both sides' oil exports are a target. The United States has become the chief watchdog of the Persian Gulf. Over 30 US warships protect neutral tankers. Dawn, July the 3rd. After a month on routine patrol, the USS Vincennes is heading towards port in Bahrain. Her crew are due a few days' rest and recuperation. But while his men are looking forward to the July the 4th break, Captain Will Rogers is already up. He's received disturbing reports from US intelligence, warning him to expect trouble from Iranian forces over this holiday weekend.
Yeah.
In the Vincennes Combat Information Center, the watch officer has received an urgent message from another ship in the US fleet that Iranian gunboats are harassing a Pakistani merchant vessel.
Skipper, you better come down. Sounds like the Montgomery's got her nose in a beehive.
I'll be right there.
The frigate USS Elmer Montgomery is north of the Vincennes near the narrow Strait of Hormuz. It's here that Iranian gunboats have been most active in attacking oil tankers as they exit the Persian Gulf. Designed to protect an aircraft carrier group, the Vincennes is a billion-dollar Aegis cruiser. It's armed with Mark 26 missile launchers, Harpoon anti-ship missiles, 2 5-inch guns, and the Phalanx close-in weapons system, which fires over 3,000 rounds a minute. But what makes the ship so special is its high-tech radar. The phased array Spy-1 can simultaneously search and track over 100 targets over 300 kilometers away. To crew members like Mike Zunino and Mark Nielsen, the Vincennes is simply Star Wars at sea.
I was very proud. Just technically, it just felt like a strong, secure ship to be on. We felt invincible in a way.
We had some of the most up-to-date weaponry and the radar and everything else. There wasn't a whole lot that we couldn't do.
Inside the Combat Information Center, Captain Rogers oversees a state-of-the-art computerized command and control system. His large-screen displays give him an instant picture of the tactical situation. Lieutenant Commander Vic Guillory is the tactical action officer responsible for surface warfare.
Vic, what do we got on visual?
Got a cluster of bog hammers here near the Montgomery. Another cluster may be closing a merchant vessel.
Over a dozen Iranian bog hammer gunboats appear to be preparing to attack a merchant ship. Bog hammers are the generic name for fast speedboats manned by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, a fundamentalist paramilitary force.
We knew that they had rockets. We knew that they had machine guns. We knew that if they got within certain range that they could, you know, literally fire off their rockets and cause grave danger.
In 1988, Iranian forces have been attacking up to 13 foreign tankers per month. Their aim is to prevent Saddam Hussein from exporting Iraqi oil. Captain Rogers sends his helicopter, call sign Ocean Lord, to investigate just what the gunboats are up to.
Roger that. Vincennes out. Vector in Ocean Lord.
Ocean Lord is a Sikorsky Seahawk, a twin-engine helicopter designed for reconnaissance, anti-submarine, and anti-ship warfare.
Roger, Trinity Sword, we read you.
Vectoring toward Montgomery now.
Ocean Lord's pilot soon finds the gunboats. They're not acting suspiciously. But he flies too close to the Iranian craft. The response is immediate, a burst of anti-aircraft fire.
Jesus! Trinity Lord, this is Ocean Lord 2-5. We are taking fire. Executing evasion. Clearing.
2-5, this is Trinity Sword Actual. Is anyone hurt? Confirm hostile fire, over.
Trinity Sword, no injuries. We confirm 8 to 10 rounds of airburst from the northernmost group of Iranian small craft. Over.
Ocean Lord, this is Trinity Sword Actual. Return immediately to Vincennes cover. Close Ocean Lord's position at best speed, bearing 330.
Under the U.S. rules of engagement, Captain Rogers is allowed to respond with force in self-defense.
30, full speed.
Set general quarters.
Officer of the deck, set general quarters.
The situation is escalating rapidly.
General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
When we went to general quarters, all of the hatches had to be tightened down. Everything had to be at a certain level of defense in case something happened.
Once you get to that station, you're supposed to, you don your helmet and your gas mask. Nobody's allowed to move around the ship. You're to stay at your battle stations doing your job.
Only 6.5 minutes after Rogers calls general quarters, the Vincennes is ready for combat. The crew have practiced the drill many times, but today it's for real. By chance, a Navy media crew is on the bridge filming as the ship surges north at over 30 knots. Captain Rogers is now heading for a lethal confrontation with the Iranian gunboats. It will be the Vincennes' first time in action. The outcome will be catastrophic. July the 3rd, 1988. The USS Vincennes powers north towards the Strait of Hormuz. Another US ship has reported aggressive activity by Iranian gunboats. Those boats have already fired on the Vincennes helicopter.
Jesus!
Captain Will Rogers III has been in the Gulf for just over a month, but he's already established a reputation as a commander who is prepared to take robust action. His ship is nicknamed the Robo-Cruiser.
The deck, set general quarters.
Meanwhile, some 87 kilometers away at Iran's Bandar Abbas airport, Iran Air Flight 655 is waiting to push back for a routine 28-minute hop across the Strait of Hormuz to Dubai. 37-year-old Mohsen Rasayan is the captain. His brother Hussein knows he's dedicated to the job.
655 standing by for ATC clearance.
He was very enjoying what he was doing. He really liked it. He was logging so many hours, over 10,000 hours of flight.
Request update on status of IR.
Captain Rasayan's flight is delayed. It's 27 minutes behind schedule due to a passenger with immigration problems. The holdup will soon confuse the crew of Vincennes, despite all their sophisticated technology. On the bridge, a Navy media crew continues to film as the Vincennes closes within striking distance of the Iranian Boghammer gunboats.
About 3 degrees north, steady course 015 I. We're about 3 degrees, go course 015. Got a visual on a Boghammer between us. See it?
Even though his helicopter has already been shot at, Captain Rogers only has the authority to open fire if he believes his ship is under direct threat. In the Gulf haze, it's hard to see just what the gunboats are doing.
One appears to be going out to starboard and one's in the middle.
Just off the starboard bow has a machine gun on it, according to 6.
But Captain Rogers doesn't have to wait for the gunboats to open fire. If they behave aggressively, that's reason enough for him to take the first shot.
Coming inbound fast. 1 at 350 is inbound.
As they turned and began to maneuver and close us fairly high speed and on erratic courses, we asked permission to fire a warning shot.
This is Vincennes. Request permission to engage Boghammer Group.
The service commander for the Gulf is on board his ship in Bahrain. Captain Richard McKenna has no hesitation in granting permission.
The fact that the helicopter was shot at virtually required a response.
Vincent, this is Gulf Sierra. Take Boghammer Group with guns.
The rules of engagement at that juncture were quite clear, and so there was no question as to what was required at that juncture.
I say again, take Boghammer Group with guns, over.
Gulf Sierra, this is Vincennes. Opening fire with guns. Assumed hostile track 4456. Vincennes out. You can fire for effect.
Making track with guns.
It's 9:43 a.m. A routine encounter in the Persian Gulf has become deadly serious.
The ship shakes. It's a 5-inch gun. I mean, there's a lot of powder behind it to propel that projectile.
Oh man, he's right behind him. 300.
This is the first time that the crew of the Vincennes have ever seen action.
It's a 028 now.
Combat was, that was the furthest thing probably from any of us. Even though we were a combat ship, it was one of those things. It's like it'll never happen to us, but yet it did.
The gunboats are now shooting back, but their fire is falling well short. The Vincennes and the Montgomery take them on together. The battle is fast-moving, with frequent changes of course.
We were maneuvering rapidly because, in the first place, my desire was to keep them at arm's length, if you will. We were shifting targets as rapidly as we could, and Montgomery at the same time was directed to engage small craft, which he did.
Verify me rounds to the train.
The Vincennes and the Montgomery are now locked in a full-scale sea battle. Anything that approaches the U.S. ships will be assessed as a possible threat.
Battery released 10 rounds. Weapons.
Lieutenant Commander Scott Lustig is the officer responsible for alerting the captain to potential airborne threats. He's been tracking an aircraft that has suddenly changed course and is now heading towards the Vincennes.
4472, Iranian P-3, range 62 miles.
The plane has been identified as an Iranian P-3 Orion, a long-range maritime surveillance aircraft. In a well-rehearsed procedure, the Vincennes warns the P-3 on a military frequency that he's being tracked.
270, this is United States Naval Warship. Request you state your intentions.
U.S. warship, this is Iranian Papa 3. Our intention is search mission. We keep clear of your unit.
The pilot promises to keep his distance, but Captain Rogers knows the P-3 is still watching him on radar. He's concerned that it could call in an Iranian airstrike. This battle is becoming more dangerous by the minute.
Yeah, I want rounds in the tray. Give me a firing solution for that northernmost group of Boghammers. Scott, keep me updated on the P-3.
Meanwhile, with all his passengers finally on board, Captain Rizayan is ready to depart.
Confirm, taxi V5 is open.
Iran Air 655.
On the 3rd of July, there are 10 civilian flights scheduled from Bandar Abbas. But the Iranian Air Force also uses this airport. US intelligence has warned that the recent transfer of F-14 fighters here represents an increased threat.
Have a nice flight.
655 cleared for takeoff.
Captain Razayan has no way of knowing that Iran Air 655 is heading directly towards a raging sea battle. Within seconds of liftoff, the Vincennes detects Flight 655. Sophisticated as the radar is, it cannot determine the size or type of aircraft. Identification Supervisor Anderson begins a routine to establish whether the aircraft is a friend or foe. His first step is to use a system called IFF.
All large aircraft have IFF. They all have identification friend or foe. Every aircraft has its own code, and you're able to look up that code and say, okay, it does give you more information.
Anderson sets out to identify the IFF signal of this incoming track. At the press of a button, an electronic pulse radiates into the atmosphere. And aircraft transponders automatically bounce back an electronic reply, squawking the signature modes and codes that reveal whether the aircraft is a friend or foe. Modes 1, 2, and 4 indicate military aircraft. Iran Air 655 has squawked Mode 3.
Everybody has Mode 3. So that alone doesn't identify a non-hostile aircraft. It could be civilian, it could be military.
As a military aircraft could conceal its identity by squawking Mode 3, Anderson's next step is to consult a commercial air schedule. He looks to see if there's a passenger flight due to depart from Bandar Abbas at this time. But he finds nothing.
Unidentified Iranian aircraft on course 203, speed 303 knots, altitude 4,000 feet. This is United States.
So the Vincennes now tries to contact the plane directly on a military distress frequency.
40 miles from you. You are approaching United States naval warship in international waters. Request you state your intentions. Over.
But there's no response. For all its state-of-the-art technology, the Vincennes doesn't have a radio tuned to civil air traffic control frequencies.
Unidentified aircraft on course 206, speed.
So the only option left is for the ship to call the mystery aircraft on the civilian international air distress frequency.
You are approaching a United States naval warship. Request you remain clear.
But there's still no answer from Flight 655. With the incoming plane closing in on the Vincennes at 8 kilometers every minute, Anderson is now alarmed to discover its IFF signal appears to have changed. The plane is squawking both Mode 3 and Mode 2, 1100. When Anderson consults his code list, he makes a disturbing discovery. The 1100 suggests that this plane could be an Iranian F-14 fighter.
All stations IDS, I have a possible Mode 2 on track 4131, 1100, which breaks as an F-14.
Possible Mode 2. Breaking as an F-14. I repeat, incoming Mode 2.
Anderson's words spread like wildfire throughout the CIC. The aircraft is now labeled as an F-14 fighter on the tactical displays in front of Captain Rogers. 48 kilometers away, the Airbus with its 290 passengers climbs out over the Persian Gulf. They have no idea that they've been misidentified and are flying into danger. An Iranian passenger jet heading for Dubai is unknowingly flying directly towards a US warship engaged in battle in the Strait of Hormuz. On board the USS Vincennes, Identification Supervisor Anderson thinks the airliner is an Iranian fighter jet.
Which breaks as an F-14.
Possible Mode 2.
In the Combat Information Center, Flight 655 is now labeled as a hostile F-14. In the 1970s, the US sold 80 F-14s to their then ally, the Shah of Iran. They are the most up-to-date fighter in the Iranian Air Force. The Vincennes crew think they're under attack.
My heartbeat was way up, my blood pressure was way up. It was like, wow. I mean, the adrenaline was just flowing.
Lieutenant Commander Scott Lustig is Captain William Rogers' anti-air warfare coordinator. With the incoming plane only 45 kilometers away, he seeks permission from headquarters to shoot it down if it comes too close.
My intention is to engage at 20 nautical miles if he does not turn away. Do you concur? Over.
You should warn aircraft first, then take it under fire.
You start crossing 20 miles, and it's an absolute threat to the ship. You're out there in the middle of the ocean. It's serious business.
The pressure on Captain Rogers is mounting. But at this critical moment, just when he should be focusing on this new threat, his attention is drawn back to the battle with the gunboats.
We've got a foul bore down here.
Captain, we have a situation with Mount 51.
In the midst of combat, the Vincennes' forward 5-inch gun has jammed.
Right, full rudder turn.
Bridge, CIC.
Hard to port. Steady ship's course. 280 degrees, maintain speed.
Stand 25 knots.
Rogers is forced to turn his ship at high speed, swinging the cruiser's rear gun around to face the incoming fire.
Right standard.
The ship leans, so if anything was not tied down, it of course went everywhere. It went sliding off, up against the wall. It turned sharp enough that if you were standing, you had to hold on to something to keep from falling over.
Bring aft gun to bear now.
As Captain Rogers struggles to keep the gunboats engaged, Captain Rizian is busy with the routines of climbing to cruising altitude.
FIR 58, Dubai 0715.
Confirm you are squawking 6760.
Affirmative.
Confirmation that his aircraft is transmitting the correct civilian IFF code, so that it can be easily identified on radar. In the Vincennes Combat Information Center, Lieutenant William Mountford sees that the approaching plane is now squawking a Mode 3 IFF response. He thinks it may not be a military aircraft after all.
Sir, possible calm air.
Captain Rogers acknowledges the warning, but he's still concerned by the plane's failure to respond.
The aircraft was warned a number of times, continued to close. Time is a demon here. If I have a long time to sort things out, you're going to take more time to look at this and more time to look at that.
Unidentified aircraft on
As Flight 655 crosses the critical 37-kilometer threshold, the Vincennes warns it once again to alter course or risk the consequences.
01, 20 miles from you. You are standing into danger and may be subject to United States defensive measures. Request you remain clear of me.
Captain Rogers now has the authority to shoot the plane down.
Captain, do you wish to engage at 20 miles? Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
I had difficulty at 20 miles. I just did not want to shoot. I could not believe that this was really happening to us.
Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
Negative.
Captain Rogers has delayed firing, hoping that the plane will finally respond to the Vincennes' warnings. But what happens next destroys that faint hope. Petty Officer Leach is the Vincennes' tactical information coordinator. He's responsible for ensuring that all air contacts are properly tracked. What he reports now seems to remove any doubts. This is a hostile aircraft.
Altitude declining.
They see the plane diving towards them, a classic attack profile.
Now you're in real serious business, because anything can happen at that point. Whether that aircraft might launch something at you, it could be the aircraft itself. 15 miles, that's pretty close and pretty serious.
Iranian aircraft on course 211, speed 385
Track 4131 approaching 13 nautical miles.
United States naval warship operating in international waters.
Wait a minute. I could be dead. the tension is just continually rising during this whole time. Everybody was on edge. Everybody was like, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Subject to United States defense measures.
Inbound air contact, closing and descending 1,000 feet per mile. Range 13 miles.
Oh my God, it's getting closer. It's getting closer. What's the captain going to do? What's going to happen? You know, what are they going to do?
Iran Air 655 now signs off with Bandar Abbas Air Traffic Control.
3.4. Have a nice flight. Thank you. Good day.
God damn it, he's getting close.
Mark, incoming bog hammer, bearing 042.
Air contact still inbound, increasing speed and descending, range 11 miles.
Captain Rogers' worst fear is that the Vincennes might face the same fate as another ship, the USS Stark. A year earlier, an Iraqi fighter launched 2 Exocet missiles at it. 37 sailors were killed, and the ship nearly lost. An inquiry blamed the incident on failures in command. The Stark had not defended itself. Its captain was reprimanded and allowed to resign from the Navy.
Captain, air contact still inbound, increasing speed and descending, range 11 miles.
Captain Rogers isn't about to make the same mistake.
Time is a demon here. At some point in time, you have to make the decision. When the aircraft reached a little over 10 miles, at that point in time, I either make the decision then or I don't make it at all, because I reached minimum weapons range.
It's the moment of truth. Captain Rogers turns his fire authorization key.
Take order, track 4131.
Do I have a take order on the contact?
Yes, take.
Birds away. Rails clear.
Iranian aircraft on course 209, speed 353 knots.
As the final warning goes out on the military air distress frequency, Rogers keeps his finger on the hold fire button so he can destroy the missiles if the aircraft finally responds.
Estimate 10 seconds to intercept.
Up on the bridge, the crew has confirmed the kill. The plane they believed was attacking them has been destroyed. Captain Rogers thinks he has saved his ship from destruction. Nothing could be further from the truth. Far from saving his crew, Rogers has just made a decision that will shock the world.
God damn it, he's getting close.
At the height of a naval battle with Iranian gunboats in the Persian Gulf, the USS Vincennes has detected an incoming aircraft.
Take order, track 4131.
In the ship's combat information center, that plane has been misidentified as an Iranian F-14 fighter. After the plane has failed to respond to warnings, Captain William Rogers has shot it down. But Rogers has made a fatal mistake. He's destroyed an Iranian passenger jet flying in an international air corridor. 290 passengers and crew are dead. Iranian television broadcasts distressing footage of their bodies floating in the Gulf. For Captain Rogers, the burden is heavy. Whatever mistakes have been made, he bears the ultimate responsibility. But for the victims' families, it's worse. Captain Rezaian's elder brother, Hussein, tries to identify his remains in a temporary mortuary in Bandar Abbas.
I try not to imagine where I went to. I try to forget it, and when I look at those bodies, I just can't control myself, and I just try to think about something else, not to think of what I saw.
Captain Rezaian's body is never recovered.
Really, I'm shattered. Our family, especially his kids, his wife, my parents, which they're still living, and there is not a day that they don't talk about this, of what happened, why it should have happened.
There's an immediate international outcry. The world wants to know how a cruiser with a state-of-the-art combat system could have mistaken a passenger airliner for an attacking Iranian fighter.
Captain, do you swear that the evidence you are giving in this matter, now an investigation...
The US government appoints Rear Admiral William Fogarty to conduct an inquiry to find out what went wrong.
My first reaction was, it was a tragedy. The thing that stuck the most to me was, you've got a lot of responsibilities ahead of you, Fogarty, and probably some sleepless nights.
And nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
The inquiry is conducted in accord with the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The stakes are high. Investigative journalist Roger Charles is a former Marine officer who's examined the story.
You're looking at a guy who's on top of the world. He's the captain of the billion-dollar Aegis cruiser. And now he's sitting at a table facing possible court-martial and, even prison time.
Admiral Fogarty's team now scrutinizes the actions of the Vincennes crew in forensic detail. When Flight 655 first appears on radar, the USS Vincennes is in the midst of a battle with Iranian gunboats. All aircraft within a radius of 100 kilometers are monitored to ensure they do not pose a threat. So Identification Supervisor Anderson starts by checking his commercial air schedule to determine if this is a passenger flight. But he's confused. The schedule lists departures in local time, but Anderson is unsure whether that means the time in Bandar Abbas or Bahrain time, which is used on the ship.
You have the almost 30-minute delay caused by the late departure of IRR 655 due to a passenger with a visa problem. Then you have the 30-minute different time zone. So he looks at it and he's seeing there's nobody within an hour scheduled to be over us.
The IFF system is supposed to distinguish friend from foe. Admiral Fogarty knows it's critical to establish how the Vincennes could have confused a commercial airliner squawking Mode 3 with a fighter emitting Mode 2.
And in your mind, that was not Com Air.
In my mind, sir, it was not a Com Air.
And why?
Because I had saw that Mode 2 squawk, sir.
The Mode 2 was the big indicator for you?
Yes, sir.
From intelligence, Fogarty discovers that as Flight 655 prepares for takeoff, an Iranian F-14 is also on the tarmac at Bandar Abbas. It now appears that although Anderson rolls his ball tab to hook Flight 655 as it takes off, he leaves it hooked for almost 90 seconds. So although the hook symbol moves towards the Vincennes, the system is still reading IFF signals from the airport at Bandar Abbas. It's a human error caused by poor design on this high-tech warship.
He left the ball tab on Bandar Abbas. So what we believe happened, and I'm pretty sure this is exactly what happened, he picked up the Mode 2 of the Iranian fighter that was getting ready for takeoff behind the Airbus.
The identification of an F-14 appears to confirm intelligence, warning Captain Rogers to anticipate trouble over the July the 4th weekend. He now believes the aircraft is part of a coordinated strike on the Vincennes from both sea and air.
Sir, possible calm air.
So he places less weight on the warning that the incoming plane is possibly a commercial airliner.
Do you recall Lieutenant Montfort saying, calm air, calm air?
I absolutely remember him telling me that, and I think I raised my hand or something to that effect to indicate that I'd heard him.
You held up your decision to fire.
Yes, sir.
Why?
I wanted every bit of information I could get. IFF was an indicator, but I didn't care whether 1100 was an F-14 or that Falker that flies around out there. But at this point, I thought they always talk to us.
Iranian aircraft on course 211.
The Vincennes transmits a total of 10 radio warnings. Why does Flight 655 never respond?
What we do know for sure is the aircraft did not respond to the warnings. He had to have something, he being the commanding officer, as proof that this was commercial air. He never got that.
Unidentified Iranian aircraft on course 20.
But the Vincennes transmits 7 warnings on a military frequency that Flight 655 cannot receive.
The Airbus did not even have a radio that was set or could accept the military air distress frequency. I mean, it's just not something they had. They had no need for it. They were a commercial airplane.
The Vincennes broadcasts only 3 warnings on the civil distress frequency. But they don't clearly identify exactly who the ship is trying to contact.
Unidentified aircraft on course 210, speed 350, altitude.
The Vincennes radio talkers are citing the aircraft's ground speed.
Bearing 201, 20 miles from you. You are standing into danger and may be subject to United States defensive measures.
But Captain Razayan's instruments show airspeed, a relative measurement. Flight 655's indicated airspeed could have been 50 knots slower than the 350-knot ground speed cited by the Vincennes.
So if the pilot hears that, well, who are they talking to? They haven't identified us. They must be talking to maybe the P-3 or maybe some other Iranian aircraft.
Throughout its flight, Iran Air 655 transmits its squawk code, the unique label that tells radars what flight it is. If the Vincennes had called out that squawk code, Captain Razayan could have known immediately they were talking to him. But the US Navy does not require its radio operators to use this code when talking to civilian aircraft. As Flight 655 nears his ship,
Captain, do you wish to engage at 20 miles?
The pressure on Captain Rogers becomes intense.
Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
When you look at the time window that he had, he waited till the very last minute. And it becomes a point of, am I going to shoot or am I not going to shoot and wait, in which case he would not be following his responsibilities to protect his ship and his crew.
The decisive factor in Captain Rogers' decision to fire are the reports he receives that the plane is descending towards him, apparently about to attack.
Altitude declining.
It's the crucial moment. The inquiry team presses Tactical Information Coordinator Leach on his call.
Okay, were you reporting descending elevations over the net?
Over the internal net? Yes, sir.
So in other words, when you saw that track, that aircraft start descending, you were reporting that up to TAO, CO, Gulf Whiskey?
Yes, sir.
Like an aircraft's black box, the Vincennes computers have recorded all the data on the Combat Information Center's screens. Those records show that Iran Air 655 had never descended.
It was, in fact, ascending the whole time. That was a revelation that we had not anticipated.
Altitude declining.
Is it possible that somebody, although the data showed perhaps that it was going up, would say it's going down, descending?
Fogarty sends a medical team, including a psychiatrist, to the Vincennes. They report that a condition called scenario fulfillment could have played a part in the tragedy.
Range 13 miles.
And as it turns out, where you believe something so badly is going to happen, that whether the data shows you it's not the case, you believe it's happening.
Had those in command on that day checked their monitors, they would have seen that Flight 655 was not diving in a classic attack profile, but was continuing its steady climb. Yet no one thought to do so.
Well, Scott, we had this disparity between what the data indicates happened and what the people said they saw at their various altitudes. Any idea why?
Well, sir, the disparity baffles me. I thought about this for many days now, and I came to the realization that this data to me doesn't mean anything because I reacted to people I had operated with who were reliable. And when they reported at short range, they had decreasing altitude, increasing speed. I had no reason to doubt them. I had to make a split-second recommendation to the commanding officer, and I did.
So Lieutenant Commander Lustig trusts his men's judgment, and Captain Rogers trusts Lieutenant Commander Lustig's.
My confidence in Lieutenant Commander Lustig confirmed to me that the aircraft was, in fact, a threat. At 9 miles, I felt I could no longer delay defensive action. I granted firing permission.
When I looked at the timeline that he had to make a decision and the information he was given upon which to make that decision, it was my feeling, to this day I still feel the same way, that he made the right decision with the main thing in his mind: I don't want my ship to get hit.
Take order, track 4131.
The Vincennes' sophisticated combat information system gives its crew accurate information, but their fear has created a threat where none exists. After a month, Admiral Fogarty's investigation is over. He finds that the downing of Iran Air 655 was not the result of any negligent or culpable conduct by any US naval personnel. Captain Rogers acted in a prudent manner, given the information available to him and the short time frame in which he had to make his critical decision. Fogarty says Iran must share the responsibility for hazarding one of their civilian airliners in close proximity to hostilities. The US government publishes an edited version of Admiral Fogarty's inquiry, but it has concealed one key fact from the world. That fact will cast a whole new light on the tragedy of Iran Air Flight 655. In August 1988, a detailed inquiry by Admiral William Fogarty into the shooting down of Iran Air 655 concludes that the captain and crew of the USS Vincennes acted properly in the face of what they believed was a threat to their ship. But investigative journalist Roger Charles is not convinced. He reads a copy of the Fogarty inquiry and wonders why it contains no map showing the Vincennes' position.
I knew the fact that there was no such chart in the Fogarty report, again, was a signal, and a curious signal to me. Why is it not there?
Skipper, you better come down. Sounds like the Montgomery's got her nose in a beehive.
I'll be right there.
When Captain Rogers first hears that Iranian gunboats are harassing merchant shipping, the Vincennes is well south of the Montgomery and destined for port in Bahrain.
Gulf Sierra, this is Vincennes. Request permission to support USS Montgomery against surface contacts. Over.
Rogers asks Captain Richard McKenna, his surface commander, for permission to turn north to support the Montgomery. But McKenna only authorizes him to send his helicopter to investigate.
Roger that. Vincennes out. Vector in, Ocean Lord.
But Captain McKenna is later startled to discover that the Vincennes has turned around and has closed on the Montgomery's position. He orders him to leave the helicopter in place and turn back immediately.
My own personal opinion is it really did feel that they were looking for action when they went to see the Elmer Montgomery. My own feeling is that the situation was not out of control. It was really my call, and yet, even though they were assigned another station, they took it upon themselves to be there. And to that extent, I feel that, you know, I mean, that's where the general feeling, and not just my own, comes that maybe they were looking for trouble.
Jesus! Trinity Lord, this is Ocean Lord 2-5. We are taking...
But once the Iranian gunboats fired upon the Vincennes helicopter, the situation changed.
Close Ocean Lord's position at best speed.
The rules of engagement now allow Captain Rogers to respond with force.
General quarters.
Officer of the...
He's now authorized to head off in hot pursuit of the gunboats. But where does that lead him? In 1990, Roger Charles obtains a copy of a restricted report on the destruction of Iran Air 655 by the International Civil Aviation Organization. It gives the Vincennes coordinates. When Charles plots them on a chart, he makes a startling discovery. At the time of the shootdown, the Vincennes is over 4 kilometers inside Iranian territorial waters. By chasing the gunboats back into Iranian territory, Rogers inadvertently places his ship directly in the flight path of Iran Air 655.
If Rogers had not taken the Vincennes up to attack the gunboats, there would have been no shoot down of IR 655. I mean, that's clear. There would have been no ongoing surface action. Rogers would have had his radar screen set for the air side of things. The focus would have only been on the air picture. They would have had plenty of time to make a proper determination that this was a commercial airliner.
Despite the tragedy, the crew of the Vincennes receive a hero's welcome on their return to port in San Diego.
Any ship in the Navy is a multi-mission ship.
Captain, do you wish to engage the target at 20 miles?
Lieutenant Commander Scott Lustig is awarded a Navy Commendation Medal for his ability to maintain his poise and confidence under fire.
Take order, track 4131.
Captain Rogers receives the Legion of Merit for his performance as commanding officer of the Vincennes. Both men have since retired from the Navy. Every year, the families of those who died on Iran Air 655 commemorate their loss in the Persian Gulf. For Hussein Rezaian, the brother of Flight 655's captain, time has not healed the wounds.
I still feel the same way. Although I try to keep myself busy, not to think about it, because it's still, I mean, it's an unforgettable human tragedy. Even after 17 years passed, the horrors of what went on in that day, you know, still lingers on in everybody's life.
In a world where technology grows ever more sophisticated, fear, the most basic of human instincts, can create the greatest tragedies. 1,000 meters above the frigid North Sea, disaster strikes. A helicopter is crippled in the middle of a sudden storm. The pilots struggle for control as it sinks helplessly towards the sea. They're far from land, off the radar screens. No one knows exactly where they are. In the days that follow, investigators search for the truth hidden in this tangled wreck. The cause of the crash shocks those involved and reveals a hidden danger that reaches far beyond the North Sea.
3,000? Here. We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Aero crew 603. We are in an emergency.
The need for oil drives men to some of the most unpleasant places on Earth. This is one of them. The North Sea divides Britain from mainland Europe. It's a shallow sea, and the cruel winds that race across it can whip up enormous waves. The sea is cold, grey, and violent. But there's oil out here. And so dozens of drilling platforms and thousands of men must face whatever the weather throws at them. The only efficient way to get the men out there is by helicopter. The flights are rough and long, up to 500 kilometers each way. After years, the trip has become largely routine. The danger below forgotten by many.
What was that?
But on a cold January morning in 1995, 18 men flying over the North Sea were faced with a horrible question.
Mayday, mayday, mayday! Tail rotor failure! Ditching!
Could they survive in this extremely hostile environment?
Oh, God! Oh.
January the 19th, 1995. Commander Ced Roberts and First Officer Lionel Sole work for Bristow Helicopters in Aberdeen, Scotland. Their job is to ferry oil workers out to the oil platforms in the North Sea. By mid-morning, they've completed one trip already and are getting ready to head back out. Their helicopter is Super Puma 56 Charlie. While it's being checked out and refueled, Flight Officer Sole checks the flight logs, and Commander Roberts goes through the weather reports, which are updated every 2 hours.
Oh, weather's okay. Good for January.
This is where they're heading, the North Sea. The discovery of oil here in the 1960s was a shot in the arm for the British economy. Brent crude, as the oil is known, is a light, sweet crude, ideal for turning into gasoline. And its price is a benchmark on the international oil market. It helped turn Aberdeen, the Scottish port city closest to the oil rigs, into a boom town, the European oil capital. All the leading oil companies have offices here. The city is focused on getting the black gold ashore. Because the rigs are so far offshore and the weather so unpredictable, helicopters are the only way to reliably ferry workers back and forth. Hundreds of thousands of people make the trip every year. The Super Pumas are one of the workhorses of the North Sea oil industry. Used around the world by industry and military, they're durable, tough, and made to withstand the elements. There are more of these helicopters flying offshore here than anywhere else in the world. The passengers heading to the platforms today gather in the heliport's departure lounge. They all work for the Texas company Marathon Oil. The North Sea has scores of oil fields. They're divided up between several countries, including England and Norway. The governments then sell the rights to drill to a variety of oil companies. Marathon operates 3 platforms in the so-called Bray field: Bray East, Bravo, and Alpha. North Sea oil platforms are like cities that never sleep. They stand on the seabed, held up by enormous legs made of either metal or concrete. Below each one, pipes snake out to the seabed. Some punch straight down, others fanning out at an angle for up to several kilometers. The same platform may be extracting both oil and natural gas at the same time. Out here, you're surrounded by the sea, with nowhere to go. The weather is often horrible, and the work on a rig can be rough, dirty, and dangerous. It's difficult to find and retain the skilled workers needed to pull the oil from the sea, so the platforms are built to keep the workers happy. Movies, internet cafes, gym equipment, even great food are all provided by management to ensure the men are entertained. During 12-hour shifts, workers handle heavy equipment and deal with great heights or great depths. But there are strict rules too. To protect the safety of everyone on board, there's no drinking, and smoking is severely restricted.
Mayday! Explosion fire on the Piper platform. All personnel abandoned.
One of Britain's worst disasters happened in the North Sea oil fields. In 1988, on Occidental Petroleum's Piper Alpha platform, the gas exploded and set fire to oil. A 167 men died. The potential for disaster is never far away. But on this January day, the Marathon oil workers prepare as they always do. All 16 are scheduled to spend 2 weeks on Marathon's Alpha platform, followed by 2 weeks off. To these men, getting to work has become routine. But getting a ticket on this flight calls for something a little out of the ordinary. None of them is permitted to board a helicopter without first going through this: helicopter underwater escape training. Their lives may depend on knowing how to get out of a submerged helicopter or oil rig, and knowing what to do once they find themselves in the chilly North Sea. Several accidents over more than 20 years have driven home the point. Training may help a worker survive. Before they set off on every flight, they must watch the video, how to behave if there's an emergency on your flight.
Brace impact.
They've seen it all 1,000 times.
In an emergency, if time does not permit, just tighten your lap strap and brace for impact. To exit through the windows, pull the red tab to completely remove the rubber seal.
The passengers fasten their survival suits. Made of Gore-Tex, these dry suits won't keep them afloat, but are supposed to keep the water out if the workers are thrown into the sea.
Obstruct the forward windows.
Their bright colors are also designed to make rescue easier. The trip to the Bray Alpha oil platform is 230 kilometers. If all goes well, it will take little more than an hour. Then, 120 miles out, they'll reach an area called the Gate. That's where all the helicopters split up and go their separate ways to the individual oil platforms. Bray Alpha is about 40 kilometers from the Gate. For part of the journey, the radar operators at air traffic control in Aberdeen won't be able to see them.
The reason why we lose low-level radar coverage out over the North Sea is, in essence, because the Earth is round. As a helicopter's flying outbound to an oil rig, it's actually following the curvature of the Earth.
But radar pulses travel in straight lines, which means that as they travel further and further away, a gap opens up between the surface of the Earth and the radar waves.
If an aircraft flies into that gap, then it'll disappear from radar. In the case of Aberdeen, a helicopter operating about 2,000 feet will disappear into that gap at about 80 miles.
It's a black hole, which Super Puma 56 Charlie is now entering. The helicopter and the 18 men on board are over halfway to the rigs, and from this moment on, no one knows exactly where they are. 56 Charlie is a Super Puma helicopter serving the North Sea oil platforms off the coast of Britain. It's halfway through a long flight carrying 16 passengers to the Bray Alpha oil rig. The crew is getting concerned about what they see on their weather radar. The forecast called for scattered clouds, but the weather is changing fast.
What do you think about this cloud?
It's quite thin.
Yeah, but look, we're getting some cumulus too. It's quite small, about 100 yards across.
Yeah, but it's developing a bit.
Cumulus are puffy white clouds like balls of cotton wool. They're beautiful to look at and usually harmless. They only last between 5 and 40 minutes. But helicopter pilots prefer to go above them if possible, because the air inside and below gets very bumpy.
Let's try to climb above it. Go to 5,000 feet.
Right. Oh, look, there's a line of them. All along the route exactly where we're going.
Yeah, we're not gaining anything by this. Let's drop back down to 3,000 feet.
Right.
So far, the weather is nothing to worry about. But over the North Sea, it can change suddenly. This corner of Europe is where the warm winds from the Atlantic meet the icy blasts from the Arctic and Siberia. The warm water vapor condenses into clouds, cools, then sinks. It creates strong winds, pushing the huge masses around. The friction caused by this motion can make the clouds electrically charged, and that electricity can be released as lightning. What starts out as a placid day can end up in a violent storm. It's now 1 hour after takeoff, and 56 Charlie is approaching the gate, the point where helicopters begin their descent to the individual oil platforms. They're 25 miles from their destination, and the weather is starting to get worse.
Bray traffic, 56 Charlie, 120 miles on the 056 HMR.
They make contact with Bray Traffic Watch, located on one of the oil platforms. It handles all the comings and goings of helicopters. But Bray Traffic doesn't have radar. It has to rely on the pilots to tell them where they are.
Leaving 3,000 feet, would you take the flight watch?
Roger, 56 Charlie, I have your flight watch.
Aberdeen information, Bristow's 56 Charlie at 120 miles. Leaving 3,000 feet, Bray has the flight watch.
Roger, 56 Charlie, continue with Bray traffic.
Quite suddenly, the weather has changed. Instead of the harmless fluffy balls of cotton wool, a line of dangerous cumulonimbus clouds is now blocking their path. They rise up like huge white mountains, more than 10,000 meters, far higher than the chopper can fly. Underneath, they're dark and menacing. Pilots try to avoid them at all costs. Inside, gusts of wind can reach up to 100 kilometers an hour. The turbulence can make the flight unpleasant, but that's only part of the danger.
The cumulonimbus, that's the granddaddy of all clouds. It stretches from around about 1,000 feet at its base all the way up to 28, 30,000 feet. They are the most dangerous clouds that aircraft can come across, particularly small aircraft like helicopters. Within a cumulonimbus, you're going to find severe turbulence, you're going to find icing, you're going to find heavy rain, and of course you're going to find lightning. If you're flying a helicopter, that's not where you want to be.
Lightning is one of the most powerful forces of nature. Around the Earth, it strikes an average of 100 times per second, each strike with a power of up to 1 billion volts. Aircraft can't completely avoid it. On average, every passenger jet will be hit once a year by lightning, but the design of the planes helps prevent them being badly damaged. Their bodies are traditionally made of aluminium, which is a good conductor of electricity. The Lightning passes harmlessly along the fuselage and exits from the tail. Helicopters use the same type of design to keep safe, and helicopters need it in the North Sea. With such stormy weather and so many helicopters, lightning strikes are inevitable. As they begin their descent, the Super Puma enters the line of clouds that stands in their path.
Bits of cloud coming up here.
Oh, it's okay, it's still green. Let's carry on through that.
Green on the weather radar means there's rain, but it's not heavy enough to worry about.
What the pilot sees in that is actually simply like a television screen. On that television screen, he has a map, and overlaid on top of that map is a series of banded colours. If there's no rain, he has a blank map. If there's lots of rain and it's heavy, he has lots of red squares on that, and that gives you the idea of the intensity and the location of the rainfall.
On board 5-6 Charlie, the weather gets more intense. They begin to get pelted by hail.
Hey, where'd this come from?
It's coming in through the vent.
It's like being inside a beanbag swamped by polystyrene balls.
It's so thick. How come the engines are still running? There can't be any air left out there.
No.
Now another problem.
We've got a hard over on the ice detector.
It's probably just an ice pellet stuck in the probe.
Right.
The helicopter has an ice detector, a probe outside the craft, which is supposed to tell the pilots whether there's ice on the blades. But they think it's become jammed with ice and is giving a false reading. And then, disaster.
Bloody hell.
What was that?
Lightning, I saw it. Well, this is bad. There's something very, very wrong with this. We'll have to go down, I'm afraid.
The helicopter has been damaged, but they don't know how badly. The entire body is shaking and vibrating. The crew's first instinct is to get down to a lower altitude in case the worst happens and they fall out of the sky.
Mayday, Mayday, 5-6 Charlie, lightning strike, severe vibration. Mayday, Mayday.
40 kilometers away, another helicopter is about to leave an oil platform. Commander Brian Backhouse is loading passengers onto 5-6 Bravo and preparing to fly back to Aberdeen.
That's everyone. All set.
Suddenly, the loading officer hears Lionel Sol's Mayday call on his radio.
Mayday, Mayday, 5-6 Charlie, lightning strike.
Hear that, Mayday, 56 Charlie!
Gentlemen, my apologies, but we have to disembark you. We have an airborne emergency on a sister aircraft.
Backhouse hurriedly unloads his passengers. He intends to help if he can. Meanwhile, a gale is steadily building up, with winds in excess of 70 kilometers an hour. The seas are mounting. The crew of 5-6 Charlie are struggling to keep control of their crippled helicopter. After the initial flash, though, the situation hasn't got worse. The Grampian Freedom is a standby ship positioned near the oil rigs to give oil workers a way to escape if anything goes wrong. Her skipper, John McInnes, hears the helicopter's distress call.
We increased the speed to full speed ahead. Everybody was informed about the vessel and told to get ready for survivors to be taken aboard.
Back on the Bravo platform, what was a routine flight for Brian Backhouse is about to become a rescue mission. He intends to find the stricken helicopter and nurse it to safety. If it crashes into the sea, he'll direct rescue ships to the spot. But they're not sure where to go.
Let's go to the gate and proceed from there.
At least they have a starting point. The Grampian Freedom doesn't know where to go either. They're getting conflicting messages about where 5-6 Charlie is. The helicopter's tiny size and the rough seas make it hard to find. On the damaged helicopter, Commander Roberts briefs the passengers.
Gentlemen, you are obviously aware of the severe vibration. We've had a lightning strike, so please pull up your hoods, zip up your suits, and prepare for a possible ditching.
Countless hours of training is supposed to have prepared all on board for a moment like this. In a real emergency, how many will remember it?
1,200 feet. We're still flying. Let's try to make it to Bray Alpha and land there.
Their destination, the Bray Alpha platform, is now only 11 kilometers away. 3 minutes have passed since the explosion, and things don't seem to be getting any worse.
I'll just try a few small inputs, make sure everything's working. Yes, we've got control in pitch, we've got control in roll, and we've got control in yaw. Tail rotor!
The helicopter is beginning to spin round, a sure sign that something's happened to the tail rotor. The only thing the pilots can do to stop the spinning is to switch off the main rotor blade.
Power off, engines off.
Ditching has become inevitable. Charlie is falling fast, more than 600 meters a minute, with the main rotor acting like a kind of parachute, the blades being turned only by the air that rushes through them.
Mayday, mayday! Tail rotor failure, ditching. Brace for emergency landing.
At this speed, they're about 40 seconds from hitting the North Sea. The other pilots in 5-6 Bravo are searching in vain. There's no sign of 5-6 Charlie in the sky or in the water. Then they hear another distress call.
Mayday, mayday! Tail rotor failure, ditching.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Relaying for 5-6 Charlie. We have a suspected tail rotor failure. He is ditching.
Commander Backhouse in 5-6 Bravo knows that he is closest to the stricken helicopter. Everything depends on him. But he's not equipped to locate the distress beacon 5-6 Charlie will use when it ditches. All he can do is search mile after mile of grey sea. Back on the Grampian Freedom, the crew begins searching the sea as well as the sky. But they know 5-6 Bravo can cover ground more quickly than the enormous, slow-moving ship. They do what they can and wait for better directions.
Floats, floats, I can't find the floats! I got it! Just keep it at trim angle. Right.
The pilots of 5-6 Charlie are about to attempt one of the most difficult maneuvers, ditching or landing in the middle of the heaving sea. Floats under the helicopter are meant to keep it from sinking. If they're deployed too soon before touchdown, the chopper may lose what little stability it has and topple over. Too late, and they won't inflate completely. Instead of riding the waves, the helicopter will sink below them. There's no second chance. They time it perfectly.
We're down.
Seems quite stable.
They've landed safely, but no one knows if they will stay afloat. Helicopters are top-heavy, and they fear it could keel over and sink at any moment.
Let's get out of here! Through the door!
They need to get the life rafts out, inflate them, and board them quickly. They fear that if the helicopter rolls over, it will trap them all inside.
Lift that end! On the rope!
You go back and help with the evacuation. I'm going to shut things down here. Right. I'm going to try one last Mayday call.
But the evacuation doesn't go smoothly. When they throw out one of the life rafts, the strong wind blows it back against the helicopter. They can't get into it.
Can't get this one down. Can we go on the other side? It's better we all stay together anyway. Off you go! Go on! Go on! Go! Go!
Mayday, mayday. 5-6 Charlie. We are on the water, floating, manning the dinghy.
He doesn't mention their position.
Make room! Get set! Make room!
The raft is dangerously overloaded. There are 18 on board, and it's only meant for 14. Water is already up to their ankles and rising. Once in the raft, they have no way of communicating where they are. For the first time, the pilots are able to see what caused the disaster. The rear rotor blade assembly and gearbox have broken off and are hanging down the side of the helicopter, held on by just a couple of pipes. No one realizes it yet, but in the rush, they've forgotten to bring the distress beacon with them from the helicopter. It sends out a signal that can be picked up by rescuers. Forgetting it could mean the difference between life and death. 2 ropes attach the life raft to the helicopter. They're meant to stop the raft from drifting away, but they'll also drag them down if the helicopter sinks. One of the passengers has a knife.
Shall I cut the line? No, not yet. We have a better chance of being spotted if we're close to the helicopter.
Problems mount. The passengers are trying to raise the canopy to protect them, but it gets stuck. Without the canopy, they're at the mercy of the waves. And then the helicopter itself becomes a danger. When the doors were jettisoned, they were supposed to be designed to slip down into the water and sink. Instead, one of them, which has a jagged edge, is floating on the surface, and it's heading straight for the raft. The life raft has been punctured by the floating door.
Come on, Bill! Bill, with everything you got, we're gonna sink! No, don't worry about it. We're not gonna sink. We've got double-layer rubber tubes here filled with air. It cannot sink. One wave and we're under.
The pilots do their best to put on a brave face.
There are other helicopters and ships out there. They know we're down. They heard our Mayday.
The overloaded life raft is getting lower and lower in the water. Inside, it's already waist deep. Now the pounding waves are pushing them beneath the sharp edges of the drooping helicopter blades.
We need to get some distance. We'll have to cut the line.
There are supposed to be 2 safety lines connecting the raft to the helicopter, one short, one long. But the long line is broken.
The long line's been cut. It's been shredded. You'll have to cut the short one.
The short line is the only thing attaching them to the helicopter. If they cut that, they'll quickly drift away, a tiny raft full of men at the mercy of the sea. But if they don't cut it, the jagged edges of the helicopter could tear their life raft to shreds and sink them all. 18 people have scrambled aboard a life raft after their helicopter crashed into the North Sea. The raft is overloaded. It's been punctured by the jagged metal edges of the helicopter door and is getting lower and lower in the water. They have to get away from the helicopter. Flight Officer Lionel Soule takes the fateful decision and cuts the rope. They begin to drift away into the storm. The conditions are deadly. Most of their survival suits are leaking freezing water. For a person in the water, hypothermia can begin when the temperatures of air and water added together is below 50 degrees centigrade. In the North Sea in winter, the temperature is far below that. Normal muscle and brain functions are quickly affected. The core body temperature will sink, followed by unconsciousness and death. Their chances of rescue are slim. No one knows where they are, just a tiny dot on a vast, turbulent sea.
Quiet! Quiet! I hear something! There's a helicopter!
The men are desperate. This could be their last chance.
Quickly! Pass me those flares! The flares! In the pocket behind you! Spot a flare, you flying bastard! Here it is! We're over here!
But it's all in vain. The helicopter passes by. The men can't believe it. Their only hope is gone. On 5-6 Bravo, Brian Backhouse can see only grey seas. But suddenly, his co-pilot spots something.
Contact. Right. 2 o'clock. Okay, Roger. Let's investigate. Target. Contact. Target confirmed. 56 Charlie. Stand by for position report.
Like a guardian angel, 5-6 Bravo hovers directly above the survivors for over an hour, directing rescue boats and aircraft towards this tiny speck in the ocean.
He came in and hovered fairly close because he wanted to count the number of people on board the life raft. So for a while he was right over the top of us and blowing us around a bit. But as soon as he had got the information he wanted, he backed off and he was just marking the position for the rescue craft to find us.
First to arrive is the Grampian Freedom.
We had lookouts posted all around the vessel, some on top of the bridge, on each wing of the bridge. A helicopter came and it started crisscrossing our bow, which is not our procedure in that kind of situation.
Almost a mile away from the raft, the Grampian Freedom launches its fast rescue boat. The boat sets off at full speed to the rescue. The rain and waves make finding the raft difficult.
Hey! There's a boat! It's coming! No, don't think us! Relax, boys, they know what they're doing! Let's go! Quickly, go!
The rescue boat throws a lifeline to the stranded men, and they begin pulling themselves to safety. But there's another challenge ahead their training hasn't prepared them for.
We reached the standby boat, and you're looking at the hull, a huge steel hull. You said, I'm never going to get up there. But the crews are well trained. They wait for the swell to go up and down in the right motions.
And they have a large net hanging down the side of the boat. And they said, we're going to come alongside, we'll be on the top of the wave, and when we shout jump, you jump and grab the net. Don't look back, because we'll be gone. We came alongside, high up on the wave, grabbed the net, the wave went back down, they were away, and they pulled off. And we just climbed the last few feet over the side onto the Grampian Freedom.
Later that day, a rescue helicopter winches up 14 of the survivors and flies them back to Aberdeen. 4 of the men, however, never want to travel in a helicopter again, so they refuse to leave the Grampian Freedom. They're in for ever more misery. They're buffeted by a force 10 gale the whole of their long journey back to Aberdeen. Through their skill and against all the odds, Cedric Roberts and Lionel Soule have saved the lives of all on board.
I must admit at the time I did think that was it, we were going to die.
The whole world had changed from being really good to being what I thought was a complete disaster at that time. It was the worst situation I'd ever been in the air, and I was very worried that that was going to be it.
But the day after the accident, they came under suspicion. Their report on what happened starts being questioned.
Lightning, notionally at least, should not affect a very powerful North Sea helicopter.
This is the first time I can recall a lightning strike having ended up with this kind of conclusion.
The experts are skeptical of the pilot's story. No other helicopter is known to have crashed into the North Sea because of lightning. Perhaps there had been some mechanical failure. There were even whispers of pilot error, of recklessly flying into storm clouds. The evidence to support their story was now beneath the waves with 5-6 Charlie. The Air Accident Investigation Branch, Britain's air crash detectives, begins searching for the truth. It may look like a rig, but the Stay Dive is actually a ship, mostly used for servicing oil platforms. It has 9 powerful engines which keep it stable in almost any weather. And it carries miniature submarines for underwater exploration. A day after the accident, it's brought in to find and raise the missing helicopter from the bottom of the North Sea. The investigation gets off to a good start. Within a day, the television cameras on board the Stay Dive's 2 submersibles locate what's left of 5-6 Charlie on the seabed. But raising it is a different matter. carry on working into the night. Soon, several pieces of 5-6 Charlie have been recovered, but still not the vital clue, the missing tail rotor. Ed Trimble was the AAIB's lead investigator.
But the big problem was to recover the tail rotor assembly. Without that, the investigation was literally going nowhere. We knew that the tail rotor assembly had been dangling over the side of the pylon as the helicopter had ditched, and it had therefore detached at some point between the ditching and where we had caught up with the main wreckage.
Keeping the stay dive going would cost another £20,000 a day. Ed Trimble rang his boss.
He was fairly skeptical of our chances. He asked what I thought our chances were of finding the tail rotor, and I, being an eternal optimist, I said 80%, to which he replied, I think you'd be very lucky if you've got a 10% chance of recovering the tail rotor assembly in the North Sea.
Ed Trimble stays up all night, relentlessly monitoring the underwater cameras.
I didn't want to be in a situation where we would have missed any evidence of further wreckage, and in particular, any parts of the tail rotor assembly.
Go get yourself a coffee, Eddie.
And by the time 8 o'clock was looming, I decided to go down to the galley to get a coffee. And I couldn't have been away any more than maximum 7 to 10 minutes when I suddenly heard these tremendously excited shouts from our team.
Yes, Eureka, we found it!
As I walked in, or ran in, there, smack in the middle of the screen, was the whole of the tail rotor assembly. And even at the first glance, I could see that one of the tail rotor blades showed clear evidence of a lightning strike.
The crew was right. The submarine's cameras revealed telltale burn marks on the tail rotor blade. A close look at the wreckage on the deck reveals that 2 of the main rotor blades were also struck by lightning. But it's this tail rotor that suffered the most damage. Since lightning is not known to have forced a helicopter to crash into the North Sea before, the question is, why now? Ed Trimble called in lightning expert John Hardwick to discover just what had hit 5-6 Charlie.
What we wanted to do with this set of tests was to take a set of tail rotor blades from the Super Puma helicopter and subject them to varying energy levels of simulated lightning strikes.
The lightning objectives at Culham basically were to try and reproduce the degree of lightning damage in order to identify what kind of level of energy was associated with this particular strike.
This home video of the tests was taken by Ed Trimble. Representatives of the company that makes the Super Puma were there too. Hardwick ran the blade through several lightning strikes until he was able to reproduce the damage found on the rotor blade. To do it, he had to generate a simulated strike of enormous power. Something far more dangerous than anyone thought the helicopter would be exposed to. Something that wasn't supposed to happen over the North Sea.
There have been a few incidents over the years, minor strikes, a little bit of damage to the helicopter, but we never expected anything as severe as happened on that day.
For one brief instant, it was more than all the electrical power being consumed in the entire United States. Some 30 billion watts. And this enormous flash of lightning had happened over the North Sea, where each year almost 3 million passengers fly unsuspecting to the oil platforms.
The helicopters we fly are certified to the highest standards. It's the same as you get on a major airliner flying transatlantic. So we had no reason to believe that any lightning we had encountered would do any severe damage to the helicopter.
Ordinary lightning wouldn't. But this wasn't ordinary.
A lightning strike generates a huge pulse of energy. We can detect these pulses of energy via multiple transmitters and receivers that are situated throughout Europe. The information is calibrated locally, and once the position has been triangulated, that's passed to the Met Office in London.
When the records were examined, they showed something very peculiar. This is what they think happened. Inside cumulonimbus clouds, tiny ice crystals are swept upwards by the wind currents. At the top of the cloud, where it's much colder, they combine with other crystals to form hail. The hail, being heavy, plummets back to Earth. On the way down, it hits the rising water crystals, causing friction. The crystals become electrically charged.
On that particular day, there was very little in the way of indication that there was any significance in these clouds.
We're flying along, everything just seemed very normal. We went through what seemed to us, by comparison to what was around that day, a fairly small cloud. But there was suddenly a lot of snow and ice pellets in the air.
I've never seen as much in the way of soft hail pellets in my whole flying career. And the worrying thing was that immediately we knew that obviously there was a high level of energy in that cloud to produce that amount of soft hail, which also meant there was a high chance of there being lightning there. But by that time it was too late.
When a helicopter enters the cloud, the sharp tips of its whirling rotor blades cut through these crystals, causing more friction, more electricity, until it's all released in a blinding flash. The records showed that the flash which hit 56 Charlie had been the only one recorded over the North Sea that day, caused almost certainly by the helicopter itself. However, for some reason, nearly all the damage had been confined to the tail rotor. What was it about the tail rotor that had made it especially vulnerable? Then Ed Trimble made a remarkable discovery. When the civil aviation authorities certified the Super Puma as safe, they had missed something important, something which may have caused 56 Charlie to fall from the sky. Safety investigators examined the wreckage of a helicopter which crash-landed in the North Sea. As they study the ruined aircraft more closely, they uncover the cause of the accident. When the British Civil Aviation Authority laid down the lightning safety standards, they were looking at fiberglass blades, then the normal material for helicopter rotors. But in the 1980s, plane makers began using the new composite materials, like carbon fiber, which were lighter and stronger. In particular, they began making the rotor blades out of carbon fiber instead of fiberglass. It was assumed that the same standards would apply equally to the new blades. In the industry, that's known as read across, and it's very dangerous. In fact, it was the very design of these composite blades which brought down 56 Charlie. Although made of carbon fiber, composite blades have a metal anti-erosion strip glued on to protect the edge. That's where the trouble starts.
Carbon is a conductor of electricity, but it's 1,000 times worse than aluminium, so you get 1,000 times as much heat produced.
The carbon blade gets very, very hot. And when the current meets the metal strip running along the edge, there is furious arcing and sparking, until finally part of the erosion strip explodes. As little as 100 grams of the erosion strip flew off, but it was enough. Without its weight, the rear rotor was unbalanced. That's what caused the vibration felt on board 56 Charlie immediately after the lightning strike. 3 minutes later, when Lionel Soule tested out the controls, the unbalanced blades put the tail rotor under enormous stress. The bolts holding it on snapped.
We've lost the tail rotor! Tail rotor's gone!
It was like a blowout in a car, only much, much worse. Things at that point were really very, very worrying. We both knew what had happened. We'd lost the tail rotor. And if you don't do exactly the right thing at that point, your life expectancy is very short. It's seconds. We had to do the right thing. We managed to point it into wind, and there was quite a big sea building up. And at 100 feet, I pulled back on the stick to flare the helicopter, slow down its rate of descent, and we were very fortunate at that point. A nice friendly wave came along, and as I leveled the helicopter, a wave came up. We sat on the top of it, and we went down, and it was one of the best landings I've ever done, but that was luck more than judgment.
As bad as it was, it could have been worse. The two hydraulic pipes connecting the assembly to the helicopter did not break.
These two small diameter pipes had held the mass of the gearbox and tail rotor assembly dangling over the right side of the pylon.
Without the weight of the rotor assembly, the helicopter would have tipped forward.
Had that tail rotor gearbox and tail rotor assembly completely separated from the helicopter, then all 18 lives would have been lost because the helicopter would have pitched down irrecoverably and gone into the North Sea.
The investigators found the answer to the mystery of a helicopter crash, but they stumbled across a bigger problem, one that affects every air traveler. Investigators believe that 5-6 Charlie's violent end was caused by a savage lightning strike greater than anything it was built to withstand. And when the lightning hit, it exposed a problem in the carbon fiber blades that made them vulnerable. The tremendous heat created where the carbon fiber met the metal erosion strip could occur again. And the same type of violent reaction could hypothetically take place in any aircraft that has carbon fiber mixed with other materials. Increasingly, aluminium is being replaced with carbon fiber. The world's largest plane, the A380 Airbus, for instance, has over 20%. What will happen if these planes encounter a monster lightning strike? This was the investigators' biggest concern arising out of this Super Puma accident. The findings were unexpected and treated with some skepticism. Though the tests indicated that an unexpectedly large lightning strike hit 5-6 Charlie, Britain's Civil Aviation Authority refused to accept it. No action was taken to increase the safety standards that these helicopters must meet.
I thought that the reaction was poor. There seemed to be a real reluctance on their behalf to accept the evidence.
If Britain's air crash detectives are right, there is a real concern facing air travelers. Flashes of lightning far greater than aircraft are supposed to encounter are possible. And aircraft made of newer composite materials are at increased risk. For the Super Puma, though, the lessons have been learned. The design of the rotor blades has been vastly strengthened. The erosion strips are now secured with heavy bolts, and pilots have been instructed to give storm clouds a wider berth. The men who must fly these machines to work are prepared to accept the risks.
Well, I think the morning there we ditched, we were very, very fortunate because the outcome could have gone horribly wrong, but we survived. We got home. My feelings of that morning was this could never happen to me. Now, when I fly in a chopper, especially in the winter time, if it's going to be buffed about with wind, I sometimes get in the back of your mind, this can't happen to me again. But we've all a choice. We've all a choice either to stop or we carry on. And I'm still there 25 years later, still learning a living.
The crash of 5-6 Charlie was a hair-raising incident that could so easily have ended in tragedy. In the winter of 1995, the skill of Commander Ced Roberts and Flight Officer Lionel Soule saved the lives of their 16 passengers. Roberts and Soule receive an award for their work. The Guild of Air Pilots and Air Navigators recognized their skill and bravery in the emergency landing.
Although we received a number of awards after the incident from various organisations, one thing I received, which is far more precious to me than any of them, was from the daughters of one of my passengers. It was this little card. It says, "Dear Captain Roberts, I can't tell you how much I need to thank you after you saved my dad's life. It took a lot of effort to try to keep calm while you were falling. If you hadn't have got that helicopter in control, my dad maybe wouldn't be here today. Thank you very, very, very much."
freight train is out of control.
Get on the phone. Tell them we got a runaway train.
7551 to West Colton.
Its brakes can't hold it as it rockets down a mountain.
Mayday, mayday. We're doing 90 miles an hour. 9-0.
Now thousands of tons of steel and freight are heading straight for a small town.
We're gonna die on that curve.
An innocent mistake risks the lives of everyone on board and many more in the town below.
3,000? We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Lima Tower, Aero Peru 603. We are in an emergency.
San Bernardino, California, a quiet suburban town at the foot of the San Gabriel Mountains. It's a great place to raise a family, in between the emptiness of the Mojave Desert and the bustle of Los Angeles.
When we had problems in the neighborhood, we could go to one another, and it was a very nice neighborhood.
But in 1989, San Bernardino is rocked by two disasters. 6 people are killed, 18 houses are completely destroyed. It begins with an out-of-control train.
60, 70, 80!
And ends with a raging fire.
You could see a huge cloud of black smoke in the air.
The scene looked like Dante's Inferno.
The disasters appear linked, but they happen more than a week apart. Investigators comb through the wreckage to find the hidden connection.
Help! Somebody help me!
They uncover a series of shocking decisions which have deadly consequences for some and scar a town forever. Early morning, May the 12th, 1989. On a railroad siding in the desert, a freight train waits to head up over California's San Gabriel Mountains. Frank Holland is the chief engineer for Southern Pacific Freight Train number 7551 East.
Well, my job as an engineer is to get on the train, operate the locomotives, obey the rules, speeds, slow down at restrictions, and get the train from point A to point B.
His work on this trip actually began the night before at the Mojave Rail Yard. Some of Southern Pacific's freight trains are put together here, picking up crews and engines to take them across the country. Holland is here to collect the paperwork he'll need for the journey.
Hey, Frank.
Holland was promoted to chief engineer 3 years before.
Okay, clearance form, train orders, train list, and tonnage profile.
His paperwork tells him he's hauling 69 freight cars, each one weighing 54,431 kilos. Holland also learns that the cars are all filled with the same thing, trona. It's a non-toxic chemical used in fertilizer.
So you start making your calculations on what kind of horsepower you're going to have to take that train down that hill. And that will tell you at what speed you can go.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Altogether, Holland's paperwork tells him he's hauling more than 3.5 million kilos of cargo, more than 10 jumbo jets. The cargo's final destination is South America. Today, Holland's only taking it as far as the West Colton terminal near Los Angeles. To do that, he'll have to haul the cargo up the San Gabriel Mountains and through the Cajon Pass. Then he'll carefully slow his huge train as it winds down the mountain.
Hey guys, we're going down to West Colton. We got 69 cars filled with trona.
Everett Crown is the conductor of 7551. He'll sit up in the front engine to assist Holland. Alan Reese is the brakeman this morning. He'll ride 2 engines back.
I'll be back in 3.
Between them, the 3 men have almost 50 years of experience working the trains with Southern Pacific. To make sure he has enough power to move his train up and down the mountain, Holland has asked for a little assistance. Southern Pacific dispatchers sent him 2 helper engines. Lawrence Hill is the engineer at the back. Robert Waterbury is his brakeman. While they've run this route before, it's not where they normally work. They don't know the weight of the cargo they're helping to haul, and they don't ask. 7551 East now has 4 engines up front and 2 behind. With the last 2 in place, the train is all set to go.
Helper calling head end.
Head end.
Coupled and ready to go.
Roger that.
'7551 East slowly gathers steam. In just an hour and a half, it'll reach the top of the mountains, the 1,300-meter-high Cajon Pass.
Helper to head end.
Head end.
We've cleared the siding.
Thank you.
On the other side of the mountains, the town of San Bernardino is slowly coming to life. The Muscoy section is a fairly new development on the northwestern edge of the town. It's filled with single-story homes and growing families. Christopher Shaw is waking up at 2326 Duffy Street. It's his mother's house, but after a fight with his girlfriend, he'd spent the night. Across the street, Ruth Green has succeeded in getting 3 children out of bed and off to school. Her only daughter, Lavon, is staying home.
It's just my daughter and I, and we're just making ready for what we considered a normal morning. We had had our breakfast and was straightening up in the kitchen.
One of the only things people don't like about this part of San Bernardino is the train tracks. Trains race by on top of a 6-meter-high levee. Some of the houses on Duffy Street back right up to the tracks.
When the homes went up for sale, the realtor was showing my husband a home that was on the same side of the street as the tracks. The tracks would have been behind our home, and he said no, he didn't want that.
Just after 7 a.m., 7551 East reaches the highest point of its trip, the Cajon Pass. It's all downhill from here. The pass is a vital rail link between Los Angeles and the rest of the world. It's one of only 3 ways to get through the mountains. Dozens of trains rumble through here every day.
Traditionally, in railroading, mountain railroaders are respected as the big guys, the tough guys, because they have the most demanding job. Cajon Pass is one of the toughest mountain passes for railroaders to deal with in the entire United States. So many trains go over it, and it is extremely demanding that everyone has to be on their toes 100% all the time.
No chance.
No?
No.
Engineer Frank Holland and conductor Everett Crown have the train right on time. There hasn't been any communication between the men at the front and the 2 men at the back of the train since the trip began. There's been no need. Everything's running smoothly. Now comes the most critical part of the journey, slowing the massive train as it starts down the mountain.
What we do when we run a train from the Mojave area to Colton is basically we drive it off a cliff. At that point, the track tips over and goes downhill at a very steep grade, 2.2%. And for trains, 2.2 feet down in every 100 feet is like falling off a cliff.
As 7551 East begins heading downhill, the crews still believe it's a normal run. What they don't know is that their train is already out of control, and they have no way to slow it down. May the 12th, 1989. Just after 7 in the morning, Southern Pacific Freight Train 7551 East begins the long, slow descent from the top of the San Gabriel Mountains. The massive train is hauling 69 cars full of freight. At the bottom of the hill, the sleepy town of San Bernardino, California. As the tracks start dipping downhill, engineer Frank Holland first applies his dynamic brakes. They slow each of the 6 engines, reducing the speed of the entire train. He's only allowed to go 48 kilometers an hour through the pass. He checks in with Lawrence Hill, the engineer in the helper engine at the back of the train, to make sure he can maintain his speed.
Call in the helper.
This is the helper.
You got all your dynamics?
Yeah, I'm in full.
Roger that.
The first part of the downhill run twists back and forth 56 times. The friction from the turns helps slow the mammoth train. Even with the turns, Holland starts applying his air brakes. They put pressure on the wheels of each freight car. The train is now traveling at 40 kilometers an hour. That's exactly where Holland wants it to stay. Once through the curves, though, Holland's brakeman, Everett Crown, notices that the train is picking up speed.
Frank, we're at 30.
Should be at 25.
The train actually was maintaining its speed. It might have been picking up just a little bit, but we still had a long way to go.
Creeping.
Confused, Holland continues to increase the pressure on the air brakes. But the train just keeps going faster.
By the time it reached 40 miles an hour, I was very concerned. The train was speeding.
As the train approaches 72 kilometers an hour, Holland turns his air brakes on full. But it doesn't help. At the bottom of the hill, the track bends around the town of San Bernardino. Frank Holland knows he's not supposed to go more than 64 kilometers an hour around the corner. Partway down the hill, he's already going much faster than that. Ruth Green's husband has left for work. Her 3 youngest children are off to school. Across the street, Chris Shaw is just about to take a shower. Engineer Frank Holland knows there are several houses that are right in the way if his train comes off the track.
I've been over that territory many times, and yeah, I knew that there was a curve coming down there that we weren't going to make. At the back of the train, engineer Lawrence Hill also knows they're in trouble. The air brakes are turned on full, but the train isn't slowing down at all.
Something must be wrong up there.
Without talking to the front of the train, Hill slams on the train's emergency brakes. It's their last chance.
The train at that point tried to slow down a little bit. A couple seconds later, it was off to the races. It just took off like a rocket. The speed was going up so fast, I couldn't even believe it.
The emergency brakes haven't worked. Smoke begins pouring out from underneath the train, and it just keeps going faster.
60, 70, 80.
It stopped at 90 because that's as far as the speedometer would go.
But Holland knows 7551 East is still picking up speed.
I'm thinking, my God, I'm fired. Actually, that's what I thought. I'm just looking at everything that I've done. I'm trying to go back and see where I had made a mistake, what had happened.
7551 to West Colton. 7551 to West Colton.
We're trying to get a hold of the train dispatcher, and he won't answer.
The train is out of control, and they can't tell anyone about it.
At that point, we're just kind of out there by ourselves.
Try that phone again.
7551 to West Colton.
West Colton, go ahead.
We have a slight problem.
At the back of the train, engineer Lawrence Hill listens to the radio call.
I don't know if we can get this train stopped.
He breaks in, desperate to tell the dispatcher how dangerous the situation is.
Mayday, mayday! We're doing 90 miles an hour. 90! Out of control. Won't be able to stop till we hit Colton.
But there's nothing the dispatcher can do. The train is traveling at more than 160 kilometers an hour. The houses of San Bernardino are just seconds away. Down in the town, a strange rumbling breaks the morning calm.
My house began to vibrate. The house was rattling so hard, I would have thought that the windows would have broke. It just got worse and worse. By then, I realized it was the train.
As we were coming up to that curve, I looked over at Everett and I said,
"We're gonna die on that curve."
He wild-eyed, like he was just couldn't believe and just scared to death, and I'm sure I looked the same way. All I knew is that I just put my feet up there and I said, hang on, here we go. I never expected to survive.
Colton. AGYM Saugus dispatcher, please come in. We're on the ground here between Dyke and Stover. Mayday! Mayday!
In the helper engine at the back of the train, engineer Lawrence Hill desperately calls the Southern Pacific dispatcher. Being at the end of the train has saved him from injury, but he's not sure everyone else has been so lucky.
SP7551, anybody, please come in.
It takes more than a minute for Hill to get a response to his frantic call.
Saugus dispatcher, 7551 East, over.
Saugus dispatcher, we are all over the ground here. I haven't heard anything from the head end. They may need some assistance. We went on the ground.
Incredibly, engineer Frank Holland survives the wreck. The man in charge of the train crawls away from his ruined engine, the first of the cars to derail.
Everett, where's Everett? We gotta get him. He's still inside. Let's get you down first.
He's helped out of the train by eyewitnesses to the disaster.
When they pulled me off of the locomotive and set me down, it was just, I just couldn't believe it. The cars were just mangled, the locomotives were destroyed. It was just, you know, unbelievable devastation. I looked back at that and I went, oh my God, what did I do?
Frank Holland has broken several ribs. One of his lungs is punctured. The man who was riding with him, Everett Crown, is soon found dead. As is Alan Reese, the brakeman who was riding in the third engine. Footage taken shortly after the crash shows the scale of the disaster. 7 houses have been destroyed. The train itself is a write-off.
As the dust cleared, then you could see some of the cars had, you know, toppled over. You could see that it looked like, you know, some houses were gone.
You could see just a twisted, jumbled mass of metal. These cars are turned over. You're really trying to grapple with, what is this? What's happened?
Alan Simpson is a battalion chief with the San Bernardino Fire Department.
The house that we focused on, with the information that the mother gave us about one individual, was totally obliterated. You wouldn't recognize it as a house. It looked like a jumble of somebody gone through it with a bulldozer.
They were hollering that there's somebody still in there. We later learned that that was where Chris Shaw lived. And when you looked at that house, it was like you would say there was no way anybody could still be alive under all of that rubble and wreckage.
The wreckage is also hiding an explosive problem no one in the neighborhood knew about. Running alongside the railway, about 2 meters below the ground, is a pipeline carrying fuel back up the mountain. If it's been damaged in the derailment, a single spark could cause a major explosion.
Prior to this incident, we were not aware that this pipeline existed and ran directly behind our homes.
The thought's always in the back of your mind if you have something like that. This is major, 14-inch pipe full of pressurized fuel. We know what that's going to do if it ruptures.
The pipeline is operated by the Kalnev Pipeline Company. It pulls hundreds of barrels of fuel from the pipe, trying to reduce the size of any potential explosion. But much more fuel remains behind. Automatic safety valves in the pipeline that are supposed to shut off individual sections aren't working. The company can't completely drain the area under the derailment. Almost 3 hours after the crash, rescue workers find the body of a small child. He's the second young boy killed in the disaster.
Well, after we recovered the 2 children from the one house, there wasn't a lot of hope for finding anybody else at that point. But you never give up hope. You always keep trying.
But there's pressure to wind the search down. Every moment spent looking for Chris Shaw further delays the cleanup. And Kalnev can't check the pipeline properly until the rail cars are gone. An entire neighborhood holds its breath. Is there any chance Shaw could possibly have lived through the disaster? Southern Pacific train 7551 East has crashed into San Bernardino, California. 4 people are dead, and an entire neighborhood has been evacuated. A gas pipeline under the wreck hasn't been checked yet. Chris Shaw was in one of the houses destroyed when the train derailed. 12 hours later, he's still missing. George Avery, a firefighter for less than a year, takes his shift at the crash site.
We were ordered to relieve the crews that were trying to search for a body. And at that time, they thought it was a body recovery.
Shaw is the last person in the neighborhood still to be accounted for. Workers ask his mother to draw a map of the house. She tells them her son was in the bathroom when the train derailed. Workers concentrate their final search effort there.
There's pieces of the house itself sticking out of this big potash mound. So you have studs and rafters and roof covering. So they gave me a specific area, so I started removing the product. And as I did so for, it seemed like an eternity, but it was probably an hour, hour and a half, this void occurred and started to reveal itself in front of me.
As Avery reaches into the opening, he feels something snag his jacket.
So then I immediately pulled it out, thinking it was caught on a nail or whatever. As I pulled it out and looked inside, I saw this hand waving in front.
I found him! I found him! Help! Somebody help me!
It takes workers nearly an hour and a half to pull Chris from the wreckage. Debris from the train had formed a protective cocoon around him. It gave Shaw air to breathe and kept the jagged metal from crushing him.
We were absolutely amazed that he lived, especially that long. We're talking about most of the day. Really didn't think he had much of a chance, so when he came up out of there, it was just stunning.
With Shaw's rescue, everyone in the neighborhood and on the train has been found. The wreck of 7551 East has killed 4 people, injured 4 more, and totally destroyed 7 houses. Even with Shaw's rescue, San Bernardino's troubles aren't over yet. If the Kalnev pipeline has been damaged, it could explode at any time, destroying more homes and taking more lives. With that threat hanging over the neighborhood, the search for the cause of the derailment begins. William Pugh and Russell Quimby are with the National Transportation Safety Board.
By the time the team got there, it was fairly late and it was dark, and the scene looked like Dante's Inferno. A lot of wreckage, a lot of parts still, particularly the brake parts, wheels, red hot, still after 12 hours. Wheels had gotten so hot they'd literally expanded off the axles.
The friction between the wheels, the brakes, and the tracks was so intense that the wheels themselves began to liquefy, turning to molten steel as the train sped down the hill. Investigators know the train's brakes couldn't slow it down, but why? The next day, cleanup operations begin. Southern Pacific needs to clear its ruined train from the area. It's the only way investigators can work and Kalnev can check its pipeline. Southern Pacific has all of the cars moved 2 days later, but the ground is still covered with 7551 East's cargo, hundreds of tons of trona. Kalnev begins clearing the trona along the route of the pipeline. It's the quickest way to inspect the line, and it keeps the heavy equipment away.
They made 5 or 6 excavations down to the pipeline to visually look at the pipeline. They felt comfortable that nothing had penetrated to the depth of the pipeline.
The fuel is under incredible pressure. Any damage could lead to a massive leak and possible explosion. But Kalnev finds nothing. The depth of the pipe has shielded it from the storm above. The pipeline is a vital source of gas for Las Vegas, almost 320 kilometers away. It supplies both civilian and military customers in the desert. There's pressure to get the gas moving again.
There were a number of people in the community that thought it should not be open, and supposedly people in Las Vegas had said that they had cars that were worth more than our homes on Duffy Street, and so fire up the pipeline.
Just 4 days after the derailment, the pipeline is restarted. Kalnev watches for any drop in pressure. It would mean fuel was escaping, that there was a leak somewhere in the system. but it holds. The very same day, Southern Pacific finishes its repairs on the damaged railway. Trains are once again moving past San Bernardino. The cleanup isn't quite finished, though. More of the ash-like cargo of train 7551 East is littered across the area. Heavy machinery comes in to dig it up and haul it away. The huge machines could easily damage the pipeline, so it's carefully marked with stakes.
I told my husband one evening that I smelled gas, but we had been reassured that they had inspected this line and that there were no leaks.
I was at the accident site until it was finally cleaned up and there was a fence put around the area and secured. And it looked like everything was fine.
Early morning, May the 25th. It's been almost 2 weeks since 7551 East derailed, slamming into San Bernardino. But the cleanup was fast. For more than a week, the trains and the fuel in a pipeline below have been running smoothly. Then, from a clear sky, rain seems to fall. Large sections of the neighborhood are soaked by this peculiar shower. Ruth Green is back in her house when for the second time in a month, she's confronted with a horrifying sight.
To the left of me, as far as I could see up, down, or side to side, was nothing but a big wall of fire. I got to the front door, neighbors were screaming, "Get out, get out." I ran for my life.
Once again, the fire department responds to a major disaster on Duffy Street.
As we're getting the call and getting on the rig and opening the door, there was no doubt in my mind what that was. You could see a huge column of smoke and flame, and I knew immediately it had to be the pipeline.
A tower of smoke and flame reaches more than 100 meters into the sky.
Initially, when we got in there, we were so close that the plastic lenses on the front of the engine melted. Several of the turn signals, part of the red lights, melted. There is an intense noise coming from this pipeline where it had ruptured. It sounded like a jet engine. Deafening is how I would describe it. And we dealt with that all day long.
Local firefighters aren't the only ones called back to the scene.
I got a call to report to the chairman's office. I went down to the chairman's office, notified that the pipeline blew up, and that I should get my team together again.
The area looked more or less like a war zone, where a lot of damage, a lot of fire damage had been done. Houses in the area were incinerated.
Once again, Calnev, which runs the pipeline, can't shut its emergency valves. Almost 2 million liters of fuel burn for more than 7 hours. By the time the flames are out, 2 people are dead. 3 more are injured. Another 11 houses have been destroyed. The residents of San Bernardino are in shock.
They talked about the fact that one of the people that died, that all they really could find was their shoes that were left in one spot. And that, you know, the mental picture of that, it troubles you quite a bit.
After the fire, it was over for me. I couldn't see myself living in the house anymore. It really scared me just that bad.
What people here will soon learn is that all of the damage, pain, and suffering is the result of a simple, horrifying mistake. small neighborhood in San Bernardino, California, has been devastated by 2 disasters. In just 13 days, a train derailment and a gas explosion have ripped through the area, killing 6 people. Investigators with the National Transportation Safety Board study both accidents. With the train crash, they focus on black boxes, which were recovered from 3 of the engines.
And that records distance, speed, throttle position, air brake pressures, that we tried to figure out what speed the train eventually got to. It exceeded the graph.
The black boxes reveal that 7551 East had probably reached the incredible speed of 177 kilometers per hour before derailing. The speed limit on the curve was just over 60 kilometers an hour. Although the train's brakes had been applied, it continued accelerating. How had the train become so out of control?
Almost all accidents are a chain of events that link together to cause the accident. Of course, any one point, if you'd broken that link, you know, the accident wouldn't have occurred.
Like other freight trains, 7551 East has 2 different systems to slow it down: dynamic brakes and air brakes. Air brakes push a block against the wheels of each freight car. The greater the pressure applied to the block, the slower the train goes. Investigators learned that the air brakes were working properly as the train started down the hill. As the train sped up, though, engineer Frank Holland maintained pressure on the air brakes. The heat created by the brakes became so intense that they melted. By the time of the crash, they were useless. The team turns its focus to the dynamic brakes. The dynamic brakes harness a magnetic field created by the engine's main generator. They reverse the magnetic field, which slows the axles on the locomotive. There were 4 engines at the front of the train and 2 at the back. Before beginning his trip, engineer Frank Holland knew that his second engine wasn't working at all, and that the dynamic brakes on his 4th engine were only working sporadically. Still, it was more than enough.
We figured that with the units that we had on the head end and the 2 helpers that they gave us later on, we could do 30 miles an hour down that grade with no problem.
When his train starts down the mountain, Holland has it under control. With the brakes he has, he should be able to hold his speed, but he can't.
Frank, we're at 30.
It should be at 25.
It's creeping.
What the NTSB investigators discover from the black boxes is stunning. The brakes on the 3rd engine at the front of the train didn't work at all as 7551 East gathered speed. During the trip, Holland had even checked with the brakeman in the 3rd engine.
Alan.
Yeah.
What are your dynamics like?
They're revving.
But the black boxes show investigators that even though the dynamic brakes were making the noise they usually make, they weren't working. They weren't helping slow the train down at all. But it gets worse.
Coupled and ready to go.
Roger
Of
that.
the 2 engines added to the back of the train, 1 didn't have any braking power either. Lawrence Hill, the engineer at the back, knew it, but he never told Frank Holland.
He didn't communicate to him that he had only 1 locomotive at a dynamic, the other one was out. The helper engineer thought that the dispatcher would notify the lead engineer.
Call in the helper.
This is the helper.
You got all your dynamics?
Yeah, I'm in full.
So when Holland asks Hill at the back of the train if he has all of his dynamics, Hill says yes. But he only means in the 1 engine. It's a startling discovery. Holland doesn't have anywhere near the braking power he thinks he does. Investigators studying the black boxes uncover one more secret of the train's terrifying ride down the mountain.
Something must be wrong up there.
When Lawrence Hill pulled the emergency brakes, he actually cancelled out the dynamic brakes. It's a safety feature to keep the wheels from locking and the train from sliding down the tracks. In this case, with the air brakes melting, the dynamic brakes were the only thing holding the train back. Putting the emergency brakes on actually sped the train up.
When the emergency brakes are applied, what happens is you lose your dynamic braking and you've got a runaway train now.
But Pugh is still puzzled. According to all the paperwork, 7551 East was hauling 3.5 million kilos of cargo. At that weight, even with his crippled engines, Holland should have been able to hold his speed going down the mountain. To find out why he couldn't, investigators turned their attention to the days before the accident. "7551 East was pulling a shipment for Lake Minerals. 5 days before the trip began, the company's superintendent drops off the proper paperwork with Thomas Blair, who works for Southern Pacific. The paperwork outlines what's in the shipment and, normally, how much it weighs.
Thanks.
In this case, though, the weight was not filled in. Lake Minerals believed each of the cars was filled to its maximum, 90,000 kilos.
Hey! Hey!
Since that's what the company expected, Lake Minerals didn't think there was any reason to put the number down. But Blair knows that to fill out the proper computer forms, he'll need to have a weight, or the train won't be able to leave the train yard. Blair has been working with Southern Pacific for 17 years. He's seen thousands of freight cars leave his yard. He makes an educated guess that the material in each car on the train weighs 54,000 kilos. But Blair's guess is a tragic miscalculation. Every single freight car on 7551 East is actually carrying 36,000 kilos more material than he estimated. Across 69 cars, it means that the train is actually more than 6 jumbo jets, 2.5 million kilos heavier than anyone thinks it is.
Nobody caught the fact that the weights were way under.
Train orders, train list, and tonnage profile.
From then on, the engineer had a profile of the train that showed 6,100 ton.
I'll be back at 3.
Okay.
He operated that way, and it was wrong. It was dramatically wrong. I mean, that was only 2/3 of the weight of that train.
That train was doomed, and we just didn't know it.
Frank Holland was in trouble before his trip began. Even if all of his engines were working, it would have been a difficult trip down the mountain. With all the problems he had, he simply didn't have the power to slow his enormous train down. Crashing into San Bernardino was all but inevitable from the beginning. The wreck of 7551 East was a preventable disaster. Investigators are about to discover that the explosion which followed didn't have to happen either. In May of 1989, twin disasters shatter the town of San Bernardino, California. A train derailment and a gas line explosion kill 6 people and destroy more than a dozen houses. Investigators comb through the ashes to learn how the two events are linked. The pipeline was 2 meters below ground. And in the days after the derailment, CalNev examined it closely. They couldn't find a single dent or crack where the train had broken through the earth. The train crash hadn't seemed to weaken the pipeline. And when gas began pumping through the pipe, there was no loss of pressure, no warning sign of a problem.
They started operating and brought it up to about 1,600 pounds, and all of the pressure readings at various places along the pipeline looked normal.
Since the derailment itself didn't cause the rupture, investigators continue their search. They study the pipeline for clues. Even though the fire burned for hours, the piece of pipe that burst has not been destroyed.
When the pipe opened up, it caused a rupture in the pipe that was sort of what we term as a fish mouth shape. And at the widest area, it was about 4 inches wide, and it was about 2.5 feet long.
Like forensic investigators, the NTSB looks for a telltale fingerprint that will help them discover how the pipe broke. Near the spot where the pipe ruptured, investigators find dents and several deeper gouges. The marks are like wounds on a murder victim. If investigators can find out what caused the marks, they'll discover what caused the pipeline to burst.
We knew that there were deposits of hardened steel left in the gouges. We knew that whatever piece of equipment had damaged the pipe had teeth on it that were hardened steel.
There are several possible suspects. A number of front-end loaders and one large backhoe used during the cleanup all had hardened steel teeth. But Batten can never pinpoint the blame.
Well, the NTSB determined that the damage to the pipeline was done during one of two phases, either the cleanup of the train wreckage or it was done during the time in which the trona was being cleaned up after the train wreckage had been removed.
Two mistakes resulted in a pair of disasters for San Bernardino and the death of 6 people. In its final report on the disasters, the NTSB doesn't blame Frank Holland, saying his belief that he had enough braking power to stop the train was perfectly reasonable. Holland still rides the rails, but he's never made the trip down the San Gabriel Mountains again.
Psychologically, I just don't think I could take it. I don't think I could relive that. Every time I went down, I would relive it. And I choose not to do that. It'd just be too painful.
Calnev, the company that operated the pipeline, was called to account for not checking it after the cleanup operations were completed. Lawsuits against the company were settled out of court.
Calnev, in hindsight, I think would agree that they should have been much more thorough in their inspection. They got comfortable with what they saw, and they made an assessment without adequate information that it was an undamaged pipeline and okay to operate.
Thomas Blair, who incorrectly filled in the paperwork, was never charged. But after the disaster, Southern Pacific changed its rules so that every freight car without a specified weight was assumed to be carrying its maximum allowable load. Southern Pacific also settled a number of lawsuits out of court. The company no longer exists. It was bought out years after the disaster. Trains continue to run past San Bernardino, but many of the families involved in the disaster moved away.
Trains were still coming down out of Cajon Pass. And so a person couldn't help but go in their mind go to where, what if that this thing could happen again?
Houses aren't allowed beside the tracks anymore. All that's left is an ugly scar of land. There's no monument here to mourn those who died, or to mark the day when disaster came to Duffy Street. crippled airliner falls towards the Indian Ocean. It has no fuel, no engine power at all.
Both engines are out. That's it.
The captain struggles to do what no one has ever done before: safely land a passenger jet on the open ocean.
We're not getting any oxygen. We have the terrain alarm. Even Tower Aero Peru 603. We are in an emergency.
The Comoros Islands, a remote holiday playground in the Indian Ocean. Days here are spent playing in the sand and splashing in the gentle waves. But in late 1996, the peace of the Comoros Islands is shattered. A plane is speeding towards the beach. It's a passenger jet hundreds of miles off course. There has been no explosion, no mechanical failure, yet the jet is falling out of the sky towards the ocean. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 is on a routine trip from Addis Ababa to the Ivory Coast. The captain is Leoul Abate. At 42, he's an extremely experienced pilot.
7,300 kilograms. Center tank is 0.
He has more than 11,000 hours of flying time to his credit.
Total fuel is 14,500 kilograms. Check.
Ethiopian Flight 961 will stop briefly in Nairobi, Brazzaville, and Lagos before it reaches its final destination of Abidjan. The plane has just enough fuel for the first leg of the trip. It will get more in Nairobi. Less fuel on board makes the plane lighter, increasing efficiency.
Switches are off.
Captain Abate and his co-pilot, Jonas Makuria, expect their day's work will be over in about 12 hours when they land in the Ivory Coast.
All clear.
The day was a bright day, clear skies. Everything was fine.
The passengers on board 961 are a mix of Ethiopians and travelers from other countries flying for business and pleasure. Michael Adenyo, seated in economy class, is a Kenyan businessman on his way home to Nairobi.
I spent the whole of Friday trying to get on that flight, calling the airline every hour or so. I remember Friday night, about 11 o'clock, I called them again, and they said, look, just come to the airport, we'll see if we can find a seat for you. So I sometimes feel I put myself on that aircraft.
Near the front of the plane, American Frank Pancho Huddle is also getting settled in. He's the United States Consul General in Bombay.
My wife, Palm, and myself decided to take a trip to Africa and go on safari. I wanted a daytime flight because it was safer. So I picked Ethiopian Airlines, which had a good reputation. It was one of the 2 carriers in all of Africa that was FAA certified.
A few rows ahead of them is Mo Amin, a legendary news cameraman and journalist. He's a well-known personality, especially in Ethiopia. In 1984, Amin captured images which shocked the world. His pictures of the Ethiopian famine prompted an outpouring of aid, which helped pull Ethiopia back from the brink of starvation.
Mo Amin was, I think, the most famous news cameraman of his time, and also one of the strangest of characters.
Amin is known for never backing down in a fight. He has stuck his nose and his camera into conflicts across Africa. While filming in Ethiopia, he had even lost an arm in a bomb blast. Today, he's returning home to Nairobi after a brief business trip. By the time all the passengers are on board, Flight 961 is carrying 175 people. Not only is Captain Abate used to this route, but he's also very comfortable with this aircraft.
B1.
He and other members of Ethiopian Airlines call it Zulu. As the plane climbs into the sky, 3 Ethiopian men have settled into their seats. All are in their mid-20s. The plane is bound for Nairobi, but it's not where these passengers are planning to go.
We took off, everything was fine. The cabin crew called us, she asked if we want to have coffee or tea, whatever.
Yeah, thank you. Coffee? Make it 2.
The plane is flying at 12,000 meters when the 3 young Ethiopians make their move.
And I heard a noise at the back, somebody shouting, and when I looked back, he was running up towards the front, pushing the air hostesses away.
There were 2 guys zipping down the plane, yelling something incomprehensible. Then a guy sort of gliding down silently came right after him, and I said, uh-oh, it's a hijacking, because they're coordinated.
Initially, we sort of just looked at each other and wondered what was going on. People didn't say much immediately.
There was some kind of noise in the cabin, and I heard the cockpit door slamming open, just bang.
3 men barge through the door and arm themselves with the cockpit's fire axe and fire extinguisher.
Get out. Get out!
There was, a little confusion up in the front as if they were, attacking the pilots.
There were 3 guys, they were shouting. They came straight to the co-pilot and they started hitting him. Get up.
There's 11 of us. If you don't do what we say, we'll blow this plane out of the sky.
I told them, okay, don't hurt him. I'll do whatever you want.
Passengers near the front of the plane are concerned, but have no idea what's going on. Captain Leol Abate is facing the hijackers alone. Unlike most pilots, though, Abate has some experience in a situation like this. He has been hijacked twice before.
The first hijack was a local flight, and then 2 hijackers who had a hand grenade came into the cockpit, and they forced her to fly to Nairobi.
Abate's second hijacking was just a few years later when he was piloting a 737.
The hijackers again held the hostess hostage, and they came into the cockpit. They told me it was hijacked, and they went to fly to Sweden.
No one had been hurt or killed in either of those incidents. In both cases, Captain Abate had landed safely. But the turbulent political situation in the region means hijacking is an unpleasant reality. From 1990 to 1996, 10 Ethiopian Airlines planes had been hijacked. This time, though, the hijackers make a very unusual request.
Fly to Australia.
What?
Fly us to Australia.
We don't have enough fuel to get to Australia. It's too far. We can go to Nairobi, or Zanzibar, or Dar es Salaam, and then refuel, and then go to Australia.
In fact, the jet took off with just 3.5 hours worth of fuel. But the hijackers don't know that. They've been reading the in-flight magazine, which tells them the maximum flying time of a 767.
11 hours. It won't take more than 10 hours to get to Australia.
We don't have 10 hours of fuel.
It says 11 hours.
We don't carry that much fuel. We only carry what we need.
They thought I was bluffing, They were convinced that the airplane was able to fly to Australia.
Abate is shocked. No one else on the plane knows what the hijackers are demanding. If he does what they say, his plane will crash in the ocean. If he doesn't, they say they'll blow it out of the sky. An Ethiopian Airlines jet has been hijacked in the skies above Africa. The hijackers want to be flown to Australia. It's a 10-hour flight, but the plane took off with just 3.5 hours of fuel. The passengers have no idea what the hijackers are demanding. Word spreads of the hijacking, but not of their destination. Flight attendants feed some of the children on board and keep working as best they can.
We started to ask the stewards what was going on, and they indicated that there was a hijacking.
Nervous and uncertain, passengers wait to see what happens next.
It was as if nobody wanted to sort of rile the hijackers, because they hadn't slapped people around. It wasn't a sort of a Middle Eastern style where they shoot somebody in the head to make a point, or they were basically leaving the passengers alone, provided that we didn't do anything. And that was enough for us.
This is how much fuel we have. If we had fuel for 11 hours, it would say 60,000 kilograms. But we don't carry that much fuel. We only carry what we need.
The hijackers seem to think that Abate is bluffing.
We have a bomb! Yes. If you don't do what we tell you to, we will blow this plane out of the sky.
Abate knows he's trapped. If he fights the hijackers, they may blow up his plane. If he does what they want, he'll run out of fuel.
My feeling tells me that it's not a real bomb, but there is no way that I can challenge that. One of them has a fire axe. That was good enough to do serious damage. You know, if I'm not alive, everybody's not alive. That's it.
I want to talk to the passengers.
After about half an hour, the hijackers came on the public address system, and they made an announcement that they have taken over the plane. And if anybody tried anything, they had one bomb and they were going to blow it up.
The announcement is made in Amharic, French, and English.
The policy at that time was we should follow the hijackers' instruction. That was before 9/11. And every action taken is to be taken on ground, not in flight. Pilots are trained to fly, not to fight.
We were following sort of the standard script, as it were, for passengers, which was to stay out of it, keep quiet, keep cool, let them sort it out, get the plane on the ground.
Some people said, oh, maybe we'll go to Sudan, land there, negotiate, and maybe they'll release us after that, or if not, move on to some other place. But it was all speculation.
For years, Clint Van Zandt was the FBI's chief hostage negotiator.
What made this hijacking so unique is that the pilot in command had been the victim of 2 previous hijackings. His success rate was 100%. He probably had a predisposition to, this will end like the other 2 did. I'll be able to get it on the ground, the authorities will deal with it.
But Captain Abate knows this situation is different. Instead of another destination in Africa, the hijackers want to go to Australia. Abate knows that heading out into the open ocean could be a death sentence. Captain Abate decides to get help.
I have to call air traffic control.
Why?
Because they will be asking why we are changing direction.
Tell them you've been hijacked, and tell them where we are going.
Addis area control. This is Ethiopian.
Since the plane is still over Ethiopia, Abate contacts Addis Ababa area control.
Addis, Ethiopian 961. There are passengers in the cockpit.
Say again, 961?
Addis 961. We have been hijacked. We have orders to divert to Australia.
961, Australia, understood. Confirm your souls on board?
Souls on board 175.
961, 175 souls on board.
As the aircraft flies south, Addis Ababa passes the captain over to Nairobi air traffic control.
ETH Nairobi Center. Confirm you are going to land Australia.
Gentlemen, we can't make Australia. We only have 2 hours of fuel. We can't make it Australia. We will make a water landing.
ETH 961. Confirm you can't divert to Mombasa.
They refuse to land anywhere other than Australia, so we have no choice. Except when we finish our fuel, we will land on water.
But with 2 hours of fuel, you can't make Australia. Why don't you land Mombasa?
Okay, just a minute.
Abate connects the air traffic control to the cockpit speakers.
Okay, I just wanted our hijackers to hear what you are communicating.
Okay.
And if you have anything to say, go ahead and tell them.
Okay. I am advising you that with 2 hours of fuel, you will be unable to reach your destination. And probably you would have to land on the water. The solution is for you to land in Mombasa. Go ahead. The hijackers of ETH 961. If you have copied, go ahead.
Waiting to talk, stand by. Do you want to talk to them? Okay, they say they don't want to talk. They're not willing to negotiate on any terms.
Confirm they are ready to land in the ocean and drown. Do you have another alternate aerodrome? Please advise.
I have no alternate aerodrome. Sir, I'm in a very tight corner.
Enough talk. We will not negotiate. That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
They said follow our instruction. If you don't, we'll blow the airplane up. That's it.
Ethiopian 961, Nairobi Control, do you read?
There would be no further communications between the aircraft and air traffic control. An hour has passed since the beginning of the hijacking. No one knows exactly what's going on in the cockpit. For the rest of the passengers and crew, the flight has settled into an uneasy routine.
There's a lot of time people were just whispering, and we were trying to figure out where we're going, where they're taking us, what's going to happen. And at least the people I was sitting next to, we thought that we would go from airport to airport, and there would be negotiations, and finally we would be released.
We went generally south, and there was an eerie, edgy, nervous calm. Nobody's talking much, and people are in their own little individual worlds.
With only a fraction of the fuel needed to get to Australia, Abate decides to defy the hijackers. Without their knowledge, he continues south instead of east towards Australia.
I started following the African coastline because in case anything happens, we'll have a place to ditch or land safely because most of the cities are by the coastline.
But with a glance out of the window, the hijackers suddenly realize they've been tricked.
I still see land. Turn the plane!
Now Captain Abate has no choice. He turns his plane east over the open ocean. As the ocean unfolds below him, the captain begins forming another plan.
I had no chart nearby because it was on the co-pilot side. So I had a small atlas. So I took out that atlas and I saw the Comoros Island.
Nestled between the African continent and the island of Madagascar is their only hope, the Comoros Islands. A remote holiday playground in the Indian Ocean.
I had no idea what that place was. I never heard of the word Comoros before. I just headed towards it. It was a guess.
The Comoros Islands are his last chance to land safely.
We just sat and sat for hours. I tried to read the newspaper, but couldn't concentrate on it because I was nervous. I wondered how much extra fuel we had, because the rule of thumb is you have enough for the alternative airport, and then they're supposed to have an extra 45 minutes of fuel beyond that. So roughly 3 hours or so of fuel they had to have. And so after we had flown 3 hours, I began to get nervous.
Suddenly, an alarm breaks the tense silence in the cockpit. It's a warning that the plane has less than 30 minutes of fuel left.
I need to tell the passengers.
There's no need.
You know what I'm going to tell them? It's out of my control. The aircraft is going to crash.
You wanna die?
We're going to die anyway.
So, shall we kill you? No more talking. Don't worry. I have the axe.
Please. At least let us attempt a controlled landing.
I will die along with him. I will show him that I have guts. It's finished. We will die together.
With almost no fuel, Abate decides to make his stand.
We came over the island. By then, fuel was running out. I decided, no, we should not go any further than this one. And I started circling that area.
But how can he convince the hijackers to let him land? He'll have to find an answer soon, or Flight 961 will crash into the sea. For 3 hours, Captain Leul Abate has been fighting a lonely battle. Hijackers have taken over his passenger jet. They want to be flown to Australia, but Abate doesn't have enough fuel. Warning alarms are already beginning to sound. An airport on the Comoros Islands is within reach, but the hijackers refuse to negotiate and won't let him land. At stake, the lives of all 175 people on board.
They took whiskey from the duty-free, and they wanted me to drink, actually, but I refused.
Once again, alarms sound. One engine is now completely out of fuel. It's shutting down. Captain Abate is quickly running out of time.
With the airplane being at 39,000 feet in cruise flight, the airplane is not going to run out of gas with each engine simultaneously. There'll probably be a bit of a lag, which in this case there was. The right engine stopped functioning first.
First thing I noticed, the engines sound different. Because there's only one engine running. It had a much deeper sound.
Abate follows standard emergency procedures. He starts the APU, or Auxiliary Power Unit. It's a generator that can supply extra electrical power when one engine is lost. Most of the passengers don't know how serious the situation is. But Captain Abate knows the plane is in grave danger.
I lost the engine at 39,000 feet. I cannot keep on flying at 39,000 feet with engine failure.
With thrust from only one engine, the aircraft immediately slows down. At a lower speed, the wings don't provide as much lift. Abate must descend to an altitude where the air is thicker. Denser air means the wings can provide enough lift to keep the aircraft flying level. The plane continues to descend. Even with only one engine, and despite the drop in altitude, the tiny Comoros Islands are still within reach of the crippled airliner. There is an airport at the capital, Moroni. If he can convince the hijackers, Abate could land there.
It's gone down 1,000.
When the engine stops, it descends. It will descend whether you like it or not.
Alone in the cockpit, Captain Abate takes a dangerous chance. He explains the situation to everyone on board.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your pilot. We have run out of fuel, and we are losing an engine at this time. We're going to make a crash landing.
When the pilot came onto the public address system and said that he had no alternative but to crash land, that is when it actually dawned on us and we realized that this was a life and death situation.
Captain Abate also makes a desperate call for help.
We have already lost one of the engines.
He wants the passengers to overpower the hijackers so he can land the plane.
I ask all passengers to react to the hijackers. Thank you.
Captain Abate knows the call for help is a huge risk.
Even though I was expecting some kind of movement in the cabin, But I had to do my job. I was doing what I had to do. You know, keep the airplane in control, fly it.
While Captain Abate waits for action, the passengers are more confused than ever.
He said, react against the hijackers, which is an odd phraseology. Nobody reacted. I think part of it was the way he said it. It was not sort of a normal way in English that you would ask someone to take on the hijackers. But he also was trying to do it enough so they wouldn't notice what he was saying.
At least one of the passengers does understand. As a news cameraman, Mo Amin has never shied away from a challenge. Amin makes his way to the economy section in the rear of the plane.
Here is a man who had spent 20 or 30 years in some of the most difficult and dangerous war zones of the world, who'd been beaten up, who'd been shot at, who'd been jailed. He was a kind of alpha male, if you know what I mean. He could talk anybody into anything.
He made it like he was going to the bathroom, and then he came back and he started talking to people who were 3 or 4 seats ahead of me. And from these gestures and actions, he was trying to get us to stand up against the hijackers.
With your help, we can take them. There's only 3 of them. Come on. Come on.
Not knowing what would happen, not knowing what these people were capable of doing. And of course, the fact that they had indicated that they would blow up the plane if anybody tried anything.
Always, always have to measure, am I going to make the situation better or am I going to make it worse? Who's ready to take the chance that your precipitous action against the hijacker might not cause him to set that explosive device off and take the life of everybody on board the plane?
In the end, the passengers choose not to act. Captain Abate is still alone against the hijackers. In the cockpit, the hijackers tried to take control in a vain attempt to keep the plane in the air.
It's descending. Don't worry. I'm not the one who's doing that.
Inadvertently, one of the hijackers disconnects the autopilot. The plane swerves wildly.
Don't move! Listen! I am not applying any motion. The aircraft is doing it by itself.
He was trying to fly the airplane, he was trying to disconnect the autopilots, all sorts of things.
It's all over. We will drop in the ocean.
31?
Abate makes another attempt to explain the desperate situation to the hijackers. Perhaps they will finally allow him to land at the nearby airport.
This is 0, and this is coming to 0.
I prayed to God. I wish I wasn't in this situation. Now I'm in it, but help me to save these people.
Ladies and gentlemen, please sit down and fasten your seatbelts. Do not panic. Please
I was starting to say, oh, I love you, dear. It's been a good ride. My wife is sort of unsentimental, psychiatric nurse, and she tells me, get up, stand up, get our bag down from the overhead, pull out your extra glasses, put them in your pocket, and get some food from me, and I want this, this, and this from food. She had carefully picked things that wouldn't make her thirsty. She said, there's not going to be any meal service once we hit the water.
Finally, the plane runs out of fuel.
So you're killing everyone? That is all. Sit down. From now on, you can't do anything to me. What? From now on, you can do nothing to me.
The other engine stopped, and it sort of went quiet. Then it started to get hot within the cabin. The light started to flicker, and gradually it went out.
That's it. Both engines are out. That's it. Is this what you wanted?
This $40 million aircraft has become a 100-ton glider. The plane is out of fuel, and Abate is out of options. A crash landing in the sea is all but inevitable.
Both engines are out. That's it. Is this what you wanted?
Almost 4 hours after takeoff, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 has finally run out of fuel. Hijackers have taken over the plane and have forced the captain to fly over the ocean. The loss of engine power starts rippling through the plane. As well as driving the jet through the skies, the engines supply power to most of the electrical and hydraulic systems. Without the engines, the computer screens, automatic pilot, and many other functions of the plane stop working. Although the engines are now useless, a low-tech backup system allows the pilot to retain some control. The ram air turbine, or RAT, is the last line of defense when all the engines fail. A small trapdoor automatically opens, and the turbine, a small propeller, pops out. The rushing air turns the propeller like a windmill, generating just enough electrical power for basic flight instruments and controls, including airspeed.
Since it was power off, that means there was no electrical or hydraulic power. The controls were heavy.
The turbine doesn't provide enough power for Abate to operate the flaps, which would help slow the plane down for landing. Wherever he lands, Captain Abate will have to do so at a dangerously high speed.
Power of landing is the power of ditching. Nobody's trained in the world. Flying over the water, you need accurate instruments. I didn't have any of the instruments.
Without engines, a large passenger jet can glide 18.5 kilometers for every 1,000 meters of altitude it loses. At 6,400 meters, the Ethiopian Airlines plane can travel for nearly 120 kilometers before it hits the ground.
One of the things that the captain's got to worry about now is with both engines shut down, the airplane's going to go down. It's just a matter of where, and that's going to be controlled by the pilot flying.
It's an extremely dangerous situation few pilots in the world have ever faced. In 1983, another 767 pilot found himself in a similar predicament. Air Canada Flight 143 ran out of fuel and landed on an abandoned Air Force base, sustaining only minor damage. In the right circumstances, a safe landing without power is possible. Captain Abate hopes to land at the airport in the Comoros Islands, but struggling against the hijackers on the final turn, he loses his bearings and cannot visually locate the runway.
I was within the vicinity of the airport, so I was keeping the airport in my sight all the time. Then through the struggle, I lost my position. I lost where I was.
In the critical seconds it takes to find the airport again, he loses too much altitude and doesn't know if he can make it to a runway. A water landing is now his only option.
He knew that he was going to have to ditch the airplane. He was going to have to put the airplane down in the water. How he was going to do that was now a different plan because he'd never been trained to do that, not with two engines out.
Landing on the ocean is even more dangerous than bringing a plane down on the ground.
If you were trying to crash land on the ground, the airplane would have a surface to slide across. That surface does not exist when you're ditching the airplane in water. The airplane is going to touch down on the water, and then at some point it's going to dig in to that water. When that happens, the airplane's going to try to stop instantly.
In trying to bring his plane down safely, Abate faces unique challenges. Planes such as the DC-9 have flat bottoms which would skim the surface of the ocean on landing, slowing down more smoothly. But the engines on Abate's 767 hang below the body. They could act as enormous scoops, grabbing hold of the water as the rest of the plane plows ahead. The force will tear the jet apart.
It was getting hotter and hotter, so we started to sweat because I guess the air conditioning system was not working since there was no power. And that's when people started to scream, started to panic, looking for life jackets, praying to Jesus, praying to Allah. Some ladies were asking people to go and plead with the hijackers not realizing that it wouldn't make any difference at this particular time. We didn't have any fuel, and that was it. We're going down, but I guess at that time, you know, your hope is all you have.
We're descending fairly rapidly. The plane is lurching wildly a couple of times. They're fighting up in the cockpit for the controls.
It's my responsibility. The passengers must know what's going on.
Descend and increase the speed.
It doesn't make any difference. Please. All the same, we're going to die. Please maintain calm. Prepare for an emergency landing. Put on your life jackets, but do not inflate them.
Some passengers either don't hear the captain's instructions or decide to ignore them. They inflate their life jackets.
I heard a pop, 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 pop back in the tourist class. And everybody panicked and inflated their life jackets. I actually got up on my seat and told people, don't inflate your life jackets inside the plane.
At the front of the plane, Mo Amin tries a last-ditch attempt to negotiate with the hijackers.
No, sit down. Mo had a desire to dominate every situation he was in. In a situation like that, it would be Mo talking to the hijackers. He would be negotiating with the hijackers. He would be, I'm sure, trying to get the other passengers to face these guys down.
But Amin's efforts have no effect. The hijackers are determined to let the aircraft crash. Then, for the first time since the hijacking began, Captain Abate gets some help.
The controls. I need help. They're too heavy.
We told them, guys, now we are on the last point. We should sit down and fasten your seatbelts. They refused. I never thought I would ditch in my lifetime. I never thought I would lose 2 engines and ditch in the middle of an ocean. I never thought anything would like that happen in my life.
Last few seconds, I remember looking out both sides of the window. I could see water. And then I took the crash landing position. All these things go through your mind. I guess having been brought up in a Christian family, I said my last prayers and said, well, if there is heaven, I hope I get out on the right side of things.
Outside in the window, you could see land at the last minute. And we realized that we were, for the first time, that we were near land, but over water.
I used to love that airplane. We used to call it Zulu. In my heart, I was talking to it. So I said, Zulu, you can make it. Now you should be able to make it. I know you'll make it. You know, I was talking to it.
On the beach, tourists are stunned. The horror of the crash is captured on one of their video cameras. The plane is flying at more than 370 kilometers per hour when it hits the water.
First bump, fairly gentle. And I sort of breathed a sigh of relief. Wow.
As soon as we touched the water, it was quite violent.
Then the second bump was like a 30-mile-an-hour auto accident.
I had a feeling the plane was not going to hold.
The third bump, and I said, uh-oh, I'm dead. And I blacked out.
Oh my God! Oh no!
The ditching was very rough. The aircraft broke apart into 3 pieces.
The cockpit broke off and the tail end broke off, so we started to go down. There was water gushing in on both sides.
Passengers who survived the initial impact struggle to escape from the shattered wreckage. As water pours in, people who've already inflated their life jackets become trapped. The water pushes them towards the ceiling of the plane. In
that kind of panic, people do all sorts of things that maybe are not rational.
The life jackets make it very difficult to swim underwater. Many passengers can't escape the sinking cabin.
The aircraft was full of water. I have no fear of water, having done competitive swimming in school. And I went for my seatbelt, and I couldn't find it buckled. So I moved my hand down to my knee and found it, pulled it open, and I pushed out. And I looked at the back of the aircraft. I could see some light at the end, and I decided to swim out in that direction. As I swam out, one of the passengers trying to get out of the seat grabbed my leg. And I said to myself, oh my God, this can cause me to drown. But I decided not to fight back. And they pulled themselves out and let go of my leg. And then I continued to swim out to the back of the aircraft and swam to the surface. I was really exhausted. I felt very tired. And I looked up. I said, okay, could this be heaven? Because I wasn't really sure whether I was alive or dead.
I was trying to tell the co-pilot to get out. Then he was not there. Then I said, okay, then it's about time for me to go out.
I woke up, was floating in the water, and I went, hey, I'm alive. I looked for my wife who'd been sitting on my right, and she was gone. My heart sank. Then I looked to my left, and she was now on my left. She had swirled around and swapped. We were out floating in the ocean. You can see what looks like an uninhabited cliff. It might be a tropical island. It's like a movie, you know.
When I leveled out and looked at sea level, I saw all these boats, these tourist boats, beautiful sails and all that, and I said, I must still be on Earth. When I looked around me, I could see all these people, life jackets and bits and pieces of debris, broken seats, floating bodies. As I swam towards the beach, I saw this passport, which was a Kenyan passport. And I stopped and opened the passport, and believe it or not, it was mine. So I took the passport and folded it and put it in my pocket and continued to swim.
Odenyo makes his way to a floating pallet of cargo that's burst loose from the plane. He pulls himself on top and waits for rescue. The plane was destroyed, ripped into several pieces.
I saw things scattered around me, the tail of the airplane far away from me. I never expected something like would happen. All I was expecting was to evacuate the passengers safely and myself.
Abate swims to safety, but he has no idea how successful he's been. He doesn't know whether any of his passengers have survived or what's happened to the hijackers. After a 4-hour struggle with hijackers, Captain Leul Abate crash lands his passenger jet in the Indian Ocean near the Comoros Islands.
Oh my God!
His plane is shattered, but his skill may have saved the lives of many on board. For those who survived the crash, Abate's decision to ditch the plane near the shore means that although the airliner breaks into pieces, it doesn't sink very far.
Fortunately, the water was very shallow. In some cases, people were able to get out.
Locals and tourists swarm out to the downed aircraft. A group of scuba divers, who narrowly missed being hit by the aircraft, help with the rescue effort. In an amazing stroke of good luck, some French doctors are staying at the resort. They offer immediate medical assistance. In the end, of the 175 people on board the plane, 50 survive. Without the actions of Abate, many more could have died. Without power and unable to use his flaps, Captain Abate lands at 370 kilometers per hour, over 100 kilometers per hour above the normal landing speed of a 767.
Once the captain made the decision that he had to ditch, the best thing that he could do was keep the airplane as close to land as possible.
Abate also tried to make the landing as smooth as possible. At the last moment, he turned the jet, hoping to land parallel to the waves instead of crashing into them. As soon as the plane hit the water, it was ripped out of Abate's control.
The airplane touched down left wing low, so the left wing actually grabbed the water.
The 767's massive, low-slung engine dug into the water, spinning the plane around.
The airplane would have wanted to turn around that left wing or cartwheel. That's a lot of energy to dissipate very quickly. That's what caused the breakup sequence. The airplane broke up into 4 or 5 pieces, and that's what caused a lot of the fatalities.
Panic may also have contributed to the number of deaths. Disregarding Abate's instructions, many passengers inflated their life jackets.
The life vest wants to keep you buoyant or try to drive you straight up, and that could hamper and restrict your ability to get out of your seat. In some cases, people were still strapped in their seat when the airplane sank, and they unfortunately drowned.
Mo Amin, who had tried to rally the passengers against the hijackers, was standing up when the plane crashed. He was probably thrown against a bulkhead when the plane crashed, dying instantly.
Mo had survived everything. He had more than 9 lives. And the idea that he should just be on an ordinary standard flight, when the kind of news story that he wasn't aware of, hadn't been assigned to, caught up with him, and to be killed in this way, has a kind of horrid irony about it.
The hijackers, who refused to sit for the landing, also died in the crash. In the days after the disaster, other pieces of the puzzle became clearer. Despite claims by the hijackers that there were 11 of them, in fact, there were only 3. But who were these desperate men, and what were their motives?
They were imprisoned, thrown in jail, persecuted and tortured by the government. They didn't specify which government, at least to the best of my understanding, and that they had escaped from jail and that they were going to make history.
They said they have friends in Australia and they want to get united with them. They wanted to go into a second country where they get the refugee status and have a better living.
Before 9/11, it was remarkably easy for hijackers to gain access to pilots.
If you don't do what we say, we'll blow this plane out of the sky.
Despite numerous hijackings over the previous 2 decades, most airlines made no attempt to secure the cockpit.
Do you want to die?
We're gonna die anyway.
So, shall we kill you?
The hijackers of Flight 961 were never linked to any terrorist group or political organization. Whatever their reasons, their crime demonstrated the great danger posed by a hijacker who places no value on his own life.
We will die together.
For years, there were people in security saying we have to strengthen that cockpit door. We have to be able to exclude anyone from coming through that door and getting control of that aircraft, whatever the reason. Whether the airlines didn't want to spend the money, they didn't see it as a threat. It didn't happen. After 9/11, every aircraft now has done that carries passengers, that has that capability of being hijacked.
Nothing is inevitable. Nobody is immune to anything. It could be 1 in a million, but it can happen.
Both Captain Leul Abate and his co-pilot, Jonas Mercuria, received many tributes for their actions on Flight 961, including a Flight Safety Foundation award.
I said, it's good that I am alive, and the world has understood what I had gone through.
Despite their ordeal, both Captain Abate and his co-pilot Mercuria continue to work for Ethiopian Airlines.